Subject to the quorum of the House go through division this afternoon for the bills to proceed to the next stage. A motion on the consideration of a joint report of the standing committees on health, that is of the Senate, as well as the Departmental Committee on Health of the National Assembly, on the approval of Dr. Patrick Omwanda Amoth for appointment as the Director General for Health. A motion that is moved by the Chairperson Standing Committee on Health is also lined up for consideration on the floor of the Senate this afternoon. Remember, this is a bill whose debate was concluded in the Tuesday afternoon sitting, that is the 6th of August, the year 2024, and members participated or gave out their opinions with regards to this particular motion, and this afternoon is set to be concluded. On that is the Speaker of the Senate, Honorable Amason Jeffa Kingi, already in the chambers. He will be presiding over this afternoon sitting. Allow me to hand you over to this live broadcast brought to you by PBU in partnership with KBC. Good afternoon.
Tutazame kwa neno nyingi na baraka sisi watumishi wako ambao umeridhika kutuita kwa nyadhifa za uongozi katika jamhuri yetu. Tukuomba utuwajalie tuyatende na kufikia mambo yote yatakayofikishwa mbele yetu kwa njia ya haki na uaminifu, ili kustawisha amani, ufanisi na heri ya nchi yetu na wale ambao haja zao umezikabidhi mikononi mwetu. Amen. Clerk, do we have quorum? Sergeant at Arms, kindly ring the quorum bell for 10 minutes.
The quorum bell is currently underway. That is a bell for the senators to be able to make their way into the chambers. Remember, at the commencement of the House business, at least 15 members should be seated inside the chambers. For the quorum to be deemed to have been achieved, that is the quorum of the Senate, at the commencement of the House business. If that quorum is not present, once the prayer and the prayer has been said and the chair has been taken, then that will necessitate that particular quorum bell. And that is exactly what is happening right now. Of course, we are expecting to see more members making their way into the chambers. Remember, in the morning sitting, the House lacked that requisite quorum, and consequently had the House adjourn its morning sitting. So we believe and hope that this afternoon the members will be able to attain that required quorum for the House to continue with its business. The report on the Joint Committee on Health, that is from the Senate and the National Assembly, that report has been tabled and will be already debate on it was done on the consideration of approval of Dr. Patrick Amoth for appointment as the Director General for Health. Debate on it was already done on the floor of the House on Tuesday, and today or this afternoon is that that particular business is resuming, with the remaining part being the question to be put for the motion to be adopted as has been proposed by the committees for the approval, or rather which approved the nomination of Dr. Patrick Omwanda Amoth for appointment as the Director General for Health.
How can you take your seats so that we get down with business? Clerk, you may proceed to call the first order, please.
Order number 1, administration of oath. Order number 2, communication from the chair.
Senator Sotsi, take a seat. Now, honorable senators have a communication to make concerning the status of the multimedia digital congress system and the broadcasting equipment in the Senate. As honorable senators may be aware, in the recent past, the multimedia digital congress system has malfunctioned, most notably while undertaking divisions. This has necessitated frequent rebooting of the system to ensure that plenary proceedings continue with limited interruptions. Likewise, the broadcasting equipment in the Senate has severally malfunctioned, resulting in intermittent transmission of plenary proceedings, with YouTube live coverage sometimes lagging in time. The extent of malfunctions of both systems has occasioned a number of points of orders from a number of senators, the most recent one being one raised by Senator Gloria Oroba, MP, at the sitting of the Senate held yesterday, Tuesday, the 6th of August, 2024. Now, honorable senators, the concerns raised by honorable senators on this matter have not gone unheard. The multimedia digital congress system and the parliamentary broadcasting equipment have over time become outdated, a situation that has been further exacerbated from the vandalism that occurred during the recent protest event where Parliament was infiltrated. Some broadcasting equipment was damaged and now require complete replacement. The Office of the Clerk has instituted remedial measures to ensure that live broadcasting of the Senate proceedings continues with limited interruptions. However, due to the damage caused, mishaps are at times unavoidable. At the sitting of the Senate Business Committee held on Tuesday, 30th of July, 2024, the matter of transmission of plenary proceedings was extensively discussed, whereupon the committee noted with concern the lack of budgetary provision for the overhaul of the broadcasting system. Honorable senators, in the meantime, the Office of the Clerk is directed to implement temporary measures to ensure the continuous transmission of Senate proceedings as the Parliamentary Service Commission reviews the financial situation. Kindly be guided accordingly. Honorable senators, you may walk in and take your seats before I make further communication. Now, honorable senators, I have a further communication to make regarding the voting procedure in the Senate. This has been necessitated by a concerning trend that has been observed in the recent past, and as a result, it has become crucial for me to address this matter to ensure that all senators are fully informed and that the voting process in the Senate is not compromised. As you are aware, Article 122 of the Constitution provides for voting in Parliament. Article 122.1 states as follows: except Senator Fonyandarwa, this is for you. Being keen as I'm delivering this communication. Except as otherwise provided in the Constitution, any question proposed for decision in either House of Parliament shall be determined by a majority of members in that House present and voting. The above provision indicates that the voting process is an important component of proceedings which serves as the mechanism through which the Senate expresses its decision on a question. Each vote cast in the chamber carries the weight of the decisions made on behalf of the citizens of each county, and therefore the process leading to an outcome of a vote must be beyond reproach. Honorable Senators, Article 123 of the Constitution, as read together with Standing Order 83-1, provides that on election, all senators who are registered as voters in a particular county shall collectively constitute a single delegation for purposes of voting on any matter in the Senate affecting counties, and the senator elected under Article 98(1)(a) shall be the head of the delegation. Standing Order 83-2 states as follows: except as otherwise provided in the Constitution, any matter in the Senate affecting counties shall A, each county delegation shall have one vote to be cast on behalf of the county by the head of the county delegation, or in the absence of the head of the delegation, by another member of the delegation designated by the head of the delegation. B, the person who votes on behalf of the delegation shall determine whether or not to vote in support or against the matter affecting after consulting with other members of the delegation. And C, the matter is carried only if it is supported by a majority of all delegations. Further, Standing Order 83-3 provides for the designation of another member of the delegation to cast a vote on behalf of the delegation. And I quote, the head of a county delegation may, for purpose of paragraph 2A, in a letter addressed to the Speaker, designate another member of the delegation to cast a vote on behalf of the delegation, either generally for a specific matter or for a specific period, or B, revoke the designation under paragraph A. Now, honorable senators, I have previously issued a communication on the need for senators to maintain decorum during plenary sittings. A key aspect during the voting process is the maintenance of order and decorum. Standing Order 91 expressly provides for decorum during division. For the avoidance of doubt, the Standing Order provides as follows: no senator shall be obliged to vote in a division, but those present and not voting shall either A, in the case of an electronic vote, press the abstain button, or B, in the case of a roll call vote, record the abstention with the clerk. 2, it shall be disorderly conduct for a senator to fail to record his or her abstention in a division. A senator shall not vote on any question in which the senator has a pecuniary interest. And 4, during division, senators shall maintain order in the Senate and shall be in their designated seats and shall remain seated until the result is announced. Honorable senators, at the sitting of the Senate held on Tuesday, the 30th of July 2024, we all witnessed repeated incidents of disorder contrary to Standing Order 91. I wish to reiterate that going forward, the Speaker will strictly enforce the provisions of Standing Order 91 and will not hesitate to invoke Standing Orders 121 on disorderly conduct and Standing Order 122 on gross disorderly conduct. Kindly be guided accordingly. Honorable senators, you may walk in and take your seats. Yes, what is your point of clarification, Senator for Meru?
Honorable Speaker, thank you very much for your communication and guidance. Honorable Speaker, I also want to thank you and the management of the National Assembly for facilitating journalists and media houses to access Parliament. Honourable Speaker, yesterday a list was released for the media houses, staff from the mainstream media houses to access Parliament. Honourable Speaker, but unfortunately, media houses that are local, vernacular stations, were left out. Mr. Speaker, you know, especially the Senate, we represent counties. And the counties, you know, there is that communication when my good friend, Uncle member for Kitui, Uncle Enoch, wants to communicate to his people. He communicates with them in Kikamba. And when that station is in the Parliament, Mr. Speaker, we are able to communicate effectively to our people. So, Mr. Speaker, that Chamuge FM, Kasi FM, Kameme FM, Muga FM, Meru FM, Weru FM were left out. Mr. Speaker, these journalists are really requesting that they should be also around to access Parliament so that they can be able to support, especially the Senate, which handles matters, devolution, matters touching on counties. Because, Mr. Speaker, like myself, every time I prosecute a bill here or a statement, I must go outside and talk to my people through Muga FM, Gateway FM, and the other stations. So, Mr. Speaker, with a lot of humility, maybe the management can be able to reconsider and also allow them. There are only actually 17. The others who have been around are 70. So these 17 really can be able to support the Senate, especially to communicate to our people machinally. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Senator Fomeru. Your point of clarification has got nothing to do with the communication that I've made. However, indeed it's valid. It's a matter that squarely falls in the arms of the Parliamentary Service Commission. I'll take it up with the Parliamentary Service Commission to see to it that the vernacular FM stations are accorded the same treatment as the mainstream media. So I will endeavor to get this to the rightful table. That is the table of the Parliamentary Service Commission. Yes, Senator Crystal Asige.
Thank you very much, Speaker. Thank you for the direction you've given on the matter raised by our Deputy Speaker. As an addendum, or rather a rejoinder to the same Chair, Speaker, it would be great if you can also give direction on how to make this amendment or to correct this, rather, across all 47 counties and all the different languages, because, of course, we have many dialects, many languages, and it would be a shame if we only consider 17 when there might be other stations that are smaller, not very well known, but still they represent a particular constituency or a particular community, Chair. So how do we do what has been suggested, but in a way that will be equal and fair across all different tribes? Thank you.
Very well, Senator Crystal Asige. I believe Parliamentary Service Commission, in its wisdom, will handle that matter. I have further communication to make, honorable senators. I would like to acknowledge the presence in the public gallery this afternoon, visiting teachers and students from Friends School Kaveye, girls in Vihiga County. The delegation comprises 4 teachers and 41 students who are in the Senate for a one-day academic exposition. Honorable senators, in our usual tradition of receiving and welcoming visitors to Parliament, I extend a warm welcome to them, and on behalf of the Senate and my own behalf, wish them a fruitful time for learning. Also, I'd like to acknowledge the presence in the Speaker's Gallery this afternoon of students from Starehe Center and school who are undertaking a 2-week service in the Senate and the school's voluntary service scheme, VSS. I request the students to stand so that they may be acknowledged in the Senate tradition. Thank you. Honorable senators, in our usual tradition, you may be seated. Honorable senators, in our usual tradition receiving and welcoming visitors to Parliament, I extend a warm welcome to them, and on behalf of the Senate and my own behalf, wish them a fruitful time for learning. Also, I would like to acknowledge the presence in the Speaker's Gallery this afternoon of visiting members of the County Assembly of Mombasa. The members are in the Senate on a courtesy call to Senator Miraj Abdullahi MP. I request each member of the delegation to stand when called out so that they may be acknowledged in the Senate tradition. Honorable Abdurrahman Hussein, member of the County Assembly, Old Town Ward, and Honorable Patrick Mbele, member of County Assembly, Bamburi Ward. Honorable Senators, in our usual tradition of receiving and welcome visitors to Parliament, I extend a warm welcome to the delegation, and on behalf of the Senate and my own behalf, wish them a fruitful visit. I will allow, under 1 minute, to call upon Senator Miraj to extend a word of welcome to the delegation from Mombasa County, and also call upon Senator for Nairobi, Senator Sifuna, under 1 minute also, to extend a word of welcome to the students from Starehe Center. And lastly, I will call upon Senator Osotsi, under 1 minute also, to extend a word of welcome to the delegation from Friends School Kaveye Girls in Vihiga County. In that order, proceed.
Asante Bwana Spika, kwa niaba ya Bunge la Seneti na kwa niaba ya maseneta watatu tunaotoka gatuzi ya Mombasa tukiongozwa na Seneta Faki, ningependa kuwakaribisha kaka zangu ma MCA waliochaguliwa kutoka jimbo la Mombasa, Bwana Anza Fresh kutoka Old Town na Patrick Mbele kutoka Bamburi Ward, na ningependa hii iwe ni ufunguzi wa kuwaleta wale ma MCA wengine ili waje washuhudie yale ambayo tunayatendea kazi hapa katika bunge hili. Mujihisi mko nyumbani kwa sababu majukumu yetu yako sawa, ni kulinda rasilimali ya Mkenya, na waomba mujihisi mko nyumbani, na wakati wowote milango ya bunge la Seneti iko wazi ili tuweze kubadilishana fikra kwa kuiendeleza mbele taifa letu la Kenya. Asante Bwana Spika.
Honorable Speaker, it is always a pleasure to welcome students from Starehe Center. As I've said previously, this is an institution whose reputation actually goes without saying. The director there, Josephat Mwaura, continues to do a good job. I was very happy and proud, Honorable Chair, that just last week, one of the more prominent alumni of Starehe was actually nominated by my party, the Orange Democratic Movement, to chair the very powerful Public Accounts Committee in the National Assembly. So I am sure that even in the delegation that is here today, we will be seeing future leaders. Mr. Speaker, I know you told me to limit myself to Starehe, but also these young ladies from Keve need to know that I went to Musingu High School and we were very close friends during the time that I was there. And Honorable Speaker, so we were very good friends as schools, as neighbors, Musingu High School and Keve Girls. And I'm talking on a day that I am very proud of my alma mater. We have just qualified for the national football finals. And we want to encourage all these young students here. When you see us here, we also just came from the village. We are not at the angels from anywhere. But we took our time in school to focus on our education. Now these days we have big titles. We are called lawyers. We are called senators. And I pray that you will follow the same path and that we will see future leaders from this particular group of students. I thank you, Speaker. And finally, just to say, I am very happy as a senator to see that there are delegations back in our galleries. This is a house that is open to the public, and I am very happy to see that people are coming back to the galleries to witness the proceedings here. I thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for this opportunity to welcome the students from Keveye Girls High School, which is one of the big girls' schools in my county, Vihiga County. And just to stress, for the interest of Senator Halwale and Senator Sifuna, that Keveye Girls High School is 1 kilometer apart from the school where I went to, the famous Chavakali High School. And we were more close to Keveye those days than Musingu. that Senator Sifuna is referring to. So I want to welcome you and encourage you to work hard so that you can come to this house and make contribution to this Senate. And in this house also, we have one of the most distinguished senators by the name Senator Asige, who also comes from Vihiga County. So I want to encourage you to work hard in school and become a serious senator like Senator Asige, who sits in this house as one of our senators. Thank you for coming, and welcome again any other day.
Next order.
Order number 3, messages. Order number 4, petitions. Order number 5, papers.
Senate Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, sir, I beg to lay the following people on the table of the Senate today, 7th of August 2024. This is the Auditor General Summary Report on the County Governments for financial year 2022-2023. Number 2, Report of the Standing Committee on National Security, Defense and Foreign Relations on a petition to the Senate by Mr. Samuel Esapar on behalf of the residents of Turkana County concerning the state of insecurity in Turkana County. Mr. Speaker, I beg to lay.
The Chairperson, Standing Committee on National Security, Defense and Foreign Relations. You may proceed. Why the Chairperson, Defense and Foreign Relations? Oh, you've already laid both papers. Okay. Proceed, Chairperson, Standing Committee on Land, Environment and Natural Resources.
Honorable Mr. Speaker, sir, I beg to lay the following paper on the table of the Senate. Today, the 7th August 2024, a report of the Standing Committee on Lands, Environment and Natural Resources on its consideration of the Wildlife Conservation and Management Amendments Bill, Senate Bills number 46 of 2023. Number 2, a report of the Standing Committee on Lands, Environment and Natural Resources on its consideration of the Wildlife Conservation and Management Amendment Bill, Senate Bill number 49 of 2023. I beg to lay.
Next order.
Order number 6, notices of motion.
The Chairperson, Standing Committee on National Security. Senator Dulo, you are a member of that committee? There is a notice of motion to be given by that committee.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I wish to give notice of this following motion, report of the Standing Committee on National Security, Defense and Foreign Relations on a petition to the Senate by Mr. Samuel Esapar on behalf of a resident of Turkana County concerning the state of insecurity in Turkana County. That the Senate adopts the report of the Standing Committee on National Security, Defense and Foreign Relations on a petition to the Senate by Mr. Samuel Esapar on behalf of residents of Turkana County concerning the state of insecurity in Turkana County, laid on the table of the Senate on Wednesday, 7th August 2024. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Professor Margaret Kamar. That order is deferred. Next order, Clerk.
Order number 7, questions and statements.
Statement pursuant to Standing Order 52-1. The Honorable Senator Karen Nyamu. That statement is dropped. Statements pursuant to Standing Order 53-1. Senator David Wakoli.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. On pending bills owed to contractors by Bungoma County Government from the year 2013 to date. Mr. Speaker, sir, I rise pursuant to Standing Order 53-1 to seek a statement from the Standing Committee on Finance and Budget regarding pending bills owed to contractors by Bungoma County Government from the year 2013 to date. In the statement, the committee should, 1, provide a breakdown of all outstanding payments owed to contractors by Bungoma County Government from the year 2013 to date. 2, provide details of the contractors, including the services they rendered. And 3, state how much was allocated in settling the pending bills in the 2013-2014 budget to date, and provide a list of all requisitions for payment of the pending bills with evidence and certificates of each payment. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir.
Honorable Senator Alan Chesang. Those two statements are dropped. Senator Wakili Hilary Sigei.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I stand pursuant to Standing Order 53-1 to seek a statement from the Standing Committee on Health regarding stalled infrastructure projects in the county of Bomet. Mr. Speaker, several incomplete and abandoned health infrastructure projects in Bomet County represent a significant waste of public resources and have deprived the residents of Bomet of the health services and benefits they rightfully deserve. Mr. Speaker, I would like to highlight the specific projects under the Health Department that have remained incomplete or abandoned for between 3 to 10 years, leading to substantial waste of public resources. Mr. Speaker, under project name, Kagasik Dispensary Lab in Danai Obasi Ward in Sotik constituency, Chepkalwal Dispensary in Danai Obasi Ward in Sotik constituency, Kimuchul Dispensary in Chemaner Ward in Bomet East constituency, X-ray and theater rooms at Sigor Sub-County Hospital in Sigor Ward of Chepalungu constituency, Kitaima Dispensary in Chesoen Ward of Bomet Central constituency, and maternity wing of Segutiet Dispensary in Chesoen Ward of Bomet Central constituency. In the statement, Mr. Speaker, I seek the committee to provide reasons leading to each of the projects remaining stalled, abandoned, or unutilized. 2, provide the minutes of the tender awards, copies of tender advertisements, and tender evaluation reports for each of the projects listed above. 3, provide the bill of quantities for each of the project and the implementation status and or development stage, and outline the budgetary allocations, expenditure, payments made to the respective projects and any such other pending payments. And finally, Mr. Speaker, state the timelines within which these projects are anticipated to be completed or to be put into utilization. Mr. Speaker, I have a second statement. With your indulgence, I can as well proceed to read. Thank you very much. Mr. Speaker, my second statement is also tabled pursuant to Standing Order 53-1. It's seeking a statement from the Standing Committee on Education concerning the termination of employment of one Mr. Richard Kipkemboi Chebusit, an early childhood development education teacher and secretary of the Bomet ECDE Teachers Association by the County Public Service Board of Bomet. Mr. Speaker, on the 29th of May 2024, Mr. Richard Kipkemboi was terminated from his position without prior notice or clear justification. This termination, Mr. Speaker, follows a series of actions taken by the said teacher to advocate for the rights and welfare of ECDE teachers in Bomet County, including, Mr. Speaker, filing a petition that is currently pending before this Honorable Senate. This petition was filed on the 20th of September 2023. The petition, Mr. Speaker, highlighted various grievances faced by the teachers in the county, such as salaries, prolonged service without confirmation, non-payment or underpayment of salaries, and lack of professional development opportunities. This petition, Mr. Speaker, led to the summoning of the governor by the Education Committee of the Senate, and the petition is currently pending before the committee. The petitioner was thereafter threatened with death consequences for dragging the name of the county before the Senate. In the statement, Mr. Speaker, the committee should provide a detailed account of the circumstances leading to the termination of employment by the County Public Service Board, including the specific reasons cited, if any, and whether these reasons were communicated to him in advance. To examine whether due process was followed before the dismissal of Mr. Chebusit, stating the legal basis for his dismissal, including internal disciplinary procedures adhered to before his firing, and thirdly, Mr. Speaker, investigate any connection between his dismissal and his role in filing the petition that is pending before the Senate and his advocacy for the ECDE teachers, and list the steps taken by the county government to address the grievances raised by the teacher and state whether these actions contributed to his sacking. And lastly, Mr. Speaker, recommend actions to safeguard the rights of ECDE teachers and other employees in the county, ensuring that individuals advocating for improved working conditions are not victimized, and assess the measures in place to protect employees who raise concerns or file grievances against unfair treatment or working conditions, ensuring they are not subjected to retaliation or personal vendetta. Mr. Speaker, I thank you.
Honorable Senator Beth Siengo.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise to bring a request for statement on the delay in disbursement of capitation funds to early childhood development and education, ECDE, institutions in Nairobi City County. Mr. Speaker, sir, I rise pursuant to Standing Order 53-1 to seek a statement from the Standing Committee on Education regarding the delay in disbursement of capitation funds to early childhood development and education, ECDE, institutions in Nairobi City County. In the statement, the committee should, 1, outline reasons for the recurring delay in disbursement of capitation funds to early childhood development and education in institutions across the country, with specific emphasis on Nairobi City County. 2, state any measures put in place by the Nairobi City County government to resolve the issue and to ensure timely disbursement of the funds in the future. 3, explain the accountability mechanisms in place, as well as any other strategies implemented by the county government to guarantee proper utilization of the capitation funds disbursed to the ECDE institutions. Senator Beth Siengo, MP, nominated senator. Mr. Speaker, sir, I have the second statement. A request for statement on the delay of disbursement of capitation funds to technical and vocational training institutions, TVET. Mr. Speaker, sir, I rise pursuant to Standing Order 53-1 to seek a statement from the Standing Committee on Education regarding the delay in disbursement of capitation funds to technical and vocational education training in institutions in Kenya, TVET. In the statement, the committee should, 1, outline reasons for the recurring delay in disbursement of capitation funds to technical and vocational education training TVET institutions across the country. 2, state any measures put in place in the Ministry of Education to resolve the issue and to ensure timely disbursement of the funds in future. And 3, explain the accountability mechanisms in place as well as any other strategies implemented by the national government to guarantee proper utilization of capitation funds disbursed to the TVET institutions. Senator Beth Siango, MP, nominated senator. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Alan Chesang, having explained yourself to the satisfaction of the chair, you may proceed to requests for your statements.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise pursuant to Standing Order 53.1 to seek a statement from the Standing Committee on Finance and Budget regarding anomalies in the payroll for both contracted staff and those on permanent and pensionable terms serving the County Executive of Trans Nzoia County Government. In the statement, the committee should, 1, provide detailed information to ascertain the circumstances under which the county executive paid and continues to pay salaries using manual processes instead of the recognized and verifiable integrated personnel and payroll database system. Number 2, to give particulars regarding the manual processing of salaries amounting to an excess of cash 77.17 million within the first 9 months of the financial year 2023-2024 alone, and indicate details of the beneficiaries, total amount paid to each individual, date and terms of appointment, and state how and when such monies was subsequently paid to the said beneficiaries for each of the 12 months in the financial year 2023-2024. Number 3, state measures being taken by the county executive to immediately stop manual payment of salaries and salary-related personnel emoluments, including the use of ad hoc processes in compliance with the approved county IPPD system in processing salaries to county workers. Number 4, disclose monthly salaries requisitions as submitted to the Controller of Budget for approval for the financial year 2023-2024, detailing when the approvals were granted by the Controller of Budget, stating when the approval salary amounts were paid to respective county executive workers. Number 5, indicate whether there was any diversion of exchequer releases meant for salaries. If so, specify the expenditure items, stating reasons for these diversions. Number 6, provide the trend of county executive wage bill allocation and development allocation for the financial year 2023-2024, including indicating supplementary revisions in the same period, and provide approved allocation on the same for the current financial year 2024-2025, ascertaining the status of compliance to fiscal responsibility as required by the Public Finance Management Act 2012. And finally, number 7, state any in-year reallocation of approved development allocation in respect of financial year 2023-2024 budget, estimates indicating affected projects or programs and the exact locations of the affected projects or programs. Mr. Speaker, I have another statement. Can I proceed to read? Proceed. Okay. Mr. Speaker, I rise pursuant to Standing Order 53-1 to seek a statement from the Standing Committee of Finance and Budget regarding payments of County Executive of Trans Nzoia for settlement of court judgments and decrees. In the statement, the committee should, number one, provide a list of all payments made by the County Executive of Trans Nzoia in the financial year 2023-2024 for settlement of court judgments and decrees issued against the county government, giving details of the associated judgments or decrees. Number two, provide a detailed breakdown of all legal fees paid by the county executive to lawyers and law firms in the financial year 2023-2024, specifying the names of the lawyers or law firms, as well as respective court cases for which the fees were incurred. And finally, number three, disclose the current budgetary allocation for each department within the county executive for the settlement of court judgments and decrees in the financial year 2024-2025. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Nyamu, having explained your absence to the satisfaction of the chair, your matter is reinstated. You may now proceed to read your statement.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise pursuant to Standing Order 52-1 to make a statement on a matter of general topical concern, namely the fire incident that happened on Saturday, 3rd of August, 2024 in Toi Market, Kibera constituency, which has greatly affected several businesses within the area. Mr. Speaker, over the years, Kenya has been exposed to a variety of disasters, such as fires, droughts, floods, landslides, HIV/AIDS, human conflict, drug abuse, traffic accidents, oil spills, industrial accidents, and terrorism, among others. Like many other countries in Africa, we have continued to face a rising degree of vulnerability to disaster risk due to increased diversity, frequency of occurrence, and intensity of impact over time and space. The recurring nature of these disasters raises serious questions about safety measures and overall management of the affected areas. Mr. Speaker, the Dawn fire of 3rd August 2024, which caught traders unawares, is believed to have started at around 4 a.m. on Saturday, while the exact cause of the fire outbreak is still unknown. Preliminary reports indicate that it was as a result of electrical fault. This is not the first time the market has gone down in flames. The market has become prone to frequent fires, as a similar case was reported last year in June, when traders woke up to find their stalls ablaze and property worth millions of shillings razed down. In November 2021, a fire razed down a section of stalls at the market, leaving traders counting heavy losses again, and in 2029, 2 fires broke out in the market. In 2028, the market experienced 3 fire cases, with 15 people losing their lives, which led to the then President Uhuru Kenyatta to call for investigations into the incident and for culprits to be brought to book. Mr. Speaker, these frequent fires in this area often fuel frustration and anger among the local community, as lives are also lost in the event of such incidents. That fateful Saturday morning, 4 people, including a child, were reported to have been burned beyond recognition as a result of the inferno. The victims were reportedly attempting to rescue their belongings when they were overpowered by the flames. The blaze has had devastating impact on the market, affecting around 2,000 traders who are now left to assess the extent of their losses. Mr. Speaker, one of the critical issues contributing to the severity of these fires is the lack of adequate access roads, which often hinders the rapid responses by the fire services. The same issue of lack of adequate access roads to the market was discussed last time the incident happened, and it is still being discussed today, leaving many unanswered questions. Mr. Speaker, in order to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals, the SDGs, and to contribute to the achievement of Kenya Vision 2030 for sustainable development, it is imperative to restructure the disaster management systems with a view to create a safe, resilient, and sustainable society. Mr. Speaker, in conclusion, I would like to urge the Standing Committee on National Security, Defense, and Foreign Relations, in conjunction with the Standing Committee of Devolution, Intergovernmental Relations, to take an interest in this matter and consider the following recommendations. Promotion of community awareness of potential hazards and preparedness, measures which can be conducted through community engagements, dialogue forums, and the use of social media. Training of community by the national and county governments on effective response to fire disaster in terms of preparedness, evacuation, mitigation, so that they could minimize on the loss of life and damage to property. Scaling up of infrastructure by the national government and county government of Nairobi to prevent such tragedies from occurring in the future, and both the national and county governments to put measures in place to compensate the victims of the fire for the harm and loss they have suffered and damages incurred on their properties. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Now, honorable senators will allow 30 minutes for intervention of the statements that have been sought, and therefore we shall terminate at 3:53. Senator Osotsi.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for the opportunity to comment on the statements. I want to particularly comment on the statement by Senator Wakoli of Bungoma on the matter of pending bills, and also the statement by Senator Siengo on the issue of capitation of vocational training centers. Mr. Speaker, the greatest risk to devolution in this country is this matter of pending bills. I have sat in this house, and almost on a weekly basis, I have had my colleagues raising matters to do with pending bills in their counties. I have also done the same for my county, Vihiga County. But Mr. Speaker, even as we do this, we are seeing very little progress is being made to address this problem of pending bills. This House passed a motion sponsored by the Senator of Narok on the matter of pending bills. And we were very clear on what we wanted done to address this problem. But again, Mr. Speaker, I am concerned that the institutions which are supposed to have implemented our resolutions are also moving very slowly in addressing this matter. And in our counties, we are seeing the kind of suffering contractors and suppliers are going through. Mr. Speaker, 2 months ago, in my county, we buried a contractor who collapsed and died because of the stress emanating from not being paid by the county government of Vihiga. Mr. Speaker, this matter of pending bills is a serious matter, and would request the Committee for Finance to follow up on all the statements that members have made in this House regarding the payment of pending bills in our counties. Mr. Speaker, the second issue on capitation of vocational training centers is a very serious issue. You remember last week, I also brought a statement on the same matter of vocational training centers in my county. These vocational training centers, Mr. Speaker, are collapsing because they are underfunded, they are poorly managed, and very little is going on there, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, this is also a matter that we would be glad if the Committee of Education took interest in this matter to have this matter addressed. because these vocation training centers were supposed to be avenues.
Senator Kinyua. Just bear in mind you have 3 minutes. Senator.
Thank you. Asante sana Bwana Spika kunipa fursa hii. Bwana Spika, nataka kuchukua fursa hii kupongeza seneta wa kutoka Bungoma kwa taarifa aliyoleta. Na Bwana Spika, taarifa aliyoleta kuhusu madeni Bwana Spika, limekuwa ni donda ndugu Bwana Spika, kwa sababu tumekuwa tukiliongea mara si moja. Bwana Spika, hili jambo la watu kupewa kazi ama wanakandarasi kupewa kazi hatimaye kutolipwa Bwana Spika, na ukiangalia katika bajeti, kwa sababu ni vizuri julikane wakati kazi inapeanwa kunasemekana kwamba hela ziko katika bajeti Bwana Spika. Kwa hivyo mtu kutolipwa pesa zake Bwana Spika inaleta mtafaruku ama stofahamu. Unapata mtu pengine amekosa pesa amekopa pesa katika benki, unapata tayari anakuja anapigwa mnada, mali yake inachukuliwa. Senator Sosi amesema vizuri Bwana Spika, unapata ya kwamba wengine wanaanguka na kufariki kwa sababu ya mshtuko wa roho, kwa sababu amejitolea Bwana Spika. Unapata Bwana Spika, kwa sababu katiba yetu ya Kenya inasema kiwango fulani cha kazi zipewa watu fulani. Unapata pengine watu wengine ni vilema Bwana Spika, wengine wao ni vijana, hawana zile hela, wamekopa Bwana Spika, wanapata mali yao ile kidogo iliyokuwa nayo inauzwa Bwana Spika. Ukiangalia Bwana Spika, kama vile ambavyo senator wa kutoka Bungoma alivyosema, ukitembelea sehemu hiyo, kwa sababu Bwana Spika tulikuwa huko wakati wa madaraka, unapata ule uga wa Masinde Mrilo ulitengenezwa na huyu mwanakandarasi ambaye anajulikana kama Ruwao Bwana Spika. Ametumia zaidi ya shilingi milioni 150 na gatuzi yenyewe haijaweza kumlipa kitu chochote Bwana Spika. Hili si jambo Bwana Spika ambalo si la kawaida, ni jambo ambalo limekuwa ni mazoea Bwana Spika. Na hapa katika seneti kazi yetu tunaongea na hakuna jambo lolote linatendeka Bwana Spika. Kwa hivyo tunapaswa Bwana Spika, si tuongee tu, tuchukulie angalau watu kadhaa hatua ndio liwe funzo Bwana Spika. Kwa sababu katika seneti tunakaa hapa tunagawa hela zinaenda katika gatuzi zetu Bwana Spika, na hakuna jambo linaloonekana likitendeka Bwana Spika, kwa sababu tumekuwa tukiongea haya maneno. Na si huko peke yake, ukitembea Laikipia Bwana Spika unapata mambo ni yale yale Bwana Spika. Bwana Spika, nikiongea kuhusu taarifa iliyoletwa na seneta wa Nairobi, Bwana Spika, wananchi wa Kenya wamekuwa chonjo na gangari. Niliwaona wananchi wa Kenya wakimtimua gavana wa Nairobi na kumtoa mbio Bwana Spika, kwa sababu amekuja kuwaambia pole na hangekuwa amefika wakati unaofaa Bwana Spika, kwa sababu gari ya moto Bwana Spika ndio ilipaswa kwenda mbele iweze kuwa imezima moto Bwana Spika. Lakini Wakenya niliwasikia wakisema ya kwamba gari halikuweza kufika. Walikuwa tayari, gavana wa Nairobi alikuwa tayari ametembelea sehemu hiyo ya hilo soko la Toi Bwana Spika, na
Senator Sifuna.
Honorable Speaker, I'm addressing this House on August the 7th. When we talk about pending bills, let us not forget the longest and biggest pending bills is to the people who lost their lives and were injured during the bomb attack. And I know that there is a committee of this House that had taken upon itself to be able to resolve that issue once and for all, and we continue to remind them that that matter is still pending, Honorable Speaker. Number two, the reason I was drawn to Senator Wakoli's statement is because I heard the governor of Bungoma, who is a former Senate Speaker, Honorable Chair, denigrating this House and saying that we go out there pretending that we are the ones who push money to counties and yet we are not the only ones. He went as far as telling us that if indeed we are the ones who cause counties to receive money, let us bang the table so that that money goes back to prove our power. I was deeply embarrassed, Honorable Speaker, for somebody of the stature of Ken Lusaka to utter such things. Thirdly, Honorable Speaker, as my sister, Honorable Karen, has spoken or alluded to, there was an incident of a fire. I must say, I was at first almost not recognizing her because of her new golden crown. I don't remember ever seeing her looking like this. But iko sawa. So, Honorable Speaker, I was saying that part of the problems we saw at Toy Market, Honorable Speaker, is because we have a lot of stalled projects in that area. As late as 5 months ago, Honorable Speaker, I was at the Woodley Stadium. At that particular time, the contractor had left the site and we were being told that the contractor was going to resume work very soon. 5 months down the line, Honorable Speaker, nothing is happening at Joseph Kang'ethe grounds. And it is part of the anger that you saw, that after the governor visited the fire, at the marketplace, after he visited Toy after the fire, that anger just, was exhibited in the manner in which he was treated. It is not something that we want to encourage. But there is a great frustration, Honorable Speaker, that projects on the ground are not moving. We have passed motions here, as Senator Ososi told you, that we needed every pending bill below 1 billion shillings to be paid by the end of the last financial year. We needed to see county governments filing payment plans with the control of budget. Those plans should also be filed with us. As far as I'm concerned, I've not seen any county that has actually filed or complied with that motion. So it becomes very difficult for us to explain to the people why this is happening. I am happy, Honorable Speaker, that now we have people that I can directly access at Treasury to explain to me if there are going to be any delays, if there are going to be any delays in disbursement of money to counties, Honorable Chair, as opposed to the previous occupant of that office. This is somebody I know where he lives, both here in Nairobi and at home. I have been to his home. I can walk there and ask questions, Honorable Speaker. So we want to see a change in that office, because we just don't want people to be given positions that they are not ready to execute the mandate of those offices. Honorable Speaker, we want to see the counties complying with the motions that have been passed by this House. We need the projects on the ground to be financed and timely disbursement of money from Treasury so that we can explain to the public where these problems are, because we cannot be a house of lamentations. Honestly, Speaker, we had proposed very radical proposals here. Let us stop giving counties money if they are not going to pay contractors. We can pay those contractors from source.
Senator Boni.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I would like to congratulate the young senator of Bungoma for raising the issue of bending bills. And like Senator Sifuna has said, it is so unfortunate that our former speaker could hold this House in contempt. I want to appeal to the governor of Bungoma, Lusaka, don't provoke me. Mr. Speaker, he owes us because he has spent 25 million shillings planting grass on a stretch of 600 meters, and he's saying it cost him 25 million shillings. If you want to question the integrity of an institution like the Senate, you should start with demonstrating integrity in your own office. And as Sifuna would say, he who seeks for justice should come with clean hands. Finally, Mr. Speaker, I want to comment on the issue of the toy market. It is concerning that we are picking information that 100 million shillings in the last budget had been put for improvement of that market. We want to see how much of that money had been expended so as to discount the possibility that this could have been a deliberate action of destroying evidence, should this House have wanted to find out how that 100 million had been expended. Finally, Mr. Speaker, we want to call upon the planning department in the city of Nairobi to help the governor to plan properly, put strategic positions for fire stations so that they can access incidences faster, and two, to create proper routes, proper roads for ambulances and fire trucks into our low-income resident areas, because we are not going to wish them away. We'll always have these low-income residential areas and marketplaces. They should be accessed properly by ambulances and by firefighters. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Essie.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for this opportunity. I want to support the statement by Senator Beth Siengo on disbursement of funds to technical vocational training institutions. And this is because TVET education is very critical in this country, because we are basing on equipping young people with technical skills so they are able to do whatever initiatives they do on their own, Mr. Speaker. But allow me also to indicate that on that same line of education, we can keep following up on why money is delaying going to these institutions, but at the same time, we also need to actually demand for an audit on how some of that money is being used. For example, Mr. Speaker, the Elimu scholarship that is being given by the Ministry of Education, taxpayers need value for their money. I saw an audit by the Auditor General Nancy Gathungu indicating so many failures out of the students who are actually beneficiaries of this scholarship. Mr. Speaker, I do not want to say that students who are performing badly do not qualify for those scholarships, but at least taxpayers who are contributing largely to this need to see the value by these scholarships being having an academic performance report attached to them, so that other needy students who are doing very well do not miss out. So in as much as we want money to go down there, but we need an audit and a report of how beneficiaries are performing and who are these beneficiaries. Look at even the international scholarships. We want to know which students have benefited so that they come back to this country and contribute to this, growing this nation. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Methu.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. I rise to comment on the statement that has been sought by this for Trans Nzoia, Senator Alan Chesang, on the anomalies in the payroll for the county executive for Trans Nzoia county government. And looking at the numbers, and I actually do not know why this was sought from the Committee on Finance and Budget, because this is a matter that we in the Committee of the Public Accounts Committee are seized of, and we look at every day and every time, because this is a matter that every time there is an audit in counties, it's a matter that is flagged out. And I know Senator Sifuna will support me that every time this matter comes up, governors will always give an excuse that the reason why they don't use the Integrated Personal and Payroll Database, IPPD, is the reason is because they have casual workers, and they have been given a template on how to treat casual workers in all the counties. The National Treasury gave a template such that casual workers are treated and their dues are also processed through this particular system, so that nobody is able to introduce ghost workers or people who are not members of a certain county establishment, staff establishment. Just the other day, Honorable Speaker, we were seized of a matter of two people who were introduced into the payroll. They were paid for many months, I think 6 months, and they were not employees of the county government of Nyamira. But more to it, Honorable Speaker, we must also look into this aspect that has also been sought by the Senator for Trans Nzoia, that county executives, especially, and speaking for the case of Nyandarua, Honorable Speaker, that they make requisitions for allowances for their staff. But once that money hits the county revenue fund, the CRF, they void those transactions and they use those money for other unintended purposes, Honorable Speaker. It is a sad state of affairs, Honorable Speaker, that some members of staff of some county establishment, let me give an example. What that means in Nyandarua, Honorable Speaker, they have only gotten allowances for 1 month in the financial year 2023-2024, Honorable Speaker. And this money has been budgeted for the Department of Public Administration of the county government of Nyandarua. The money that had been budgeted for allowances for the ward admins and sub-county administrators was that 1 million. The money that they received was only 3 million. The rest of the money was used as interest, Honorable Speaker. And you know how interest is used in by county executives, Honorable Speaker. So this statement, Honorable Speaker, must unearth how and why transactions, especially for allowances for members of staff, because they are junior members of staff, so they do not have the avenue of paying themselves, Honorable Speaker, the money is voided or the transaction is voided and it is used for other unintended purposes, Honorable Speaker. I submit.
Senator Miraj.
Asante Bwana Spika, na mimi niweze kutoa changizo zangu kwenye statement ya Senator wa Bungoma kwa kuzungumzia masuala ya malimbikizi ya madeni. kwa wanakandarasi na wanaopeana huduma tofauti tofauti katika gatuzi zetu. Bwana Spika, kwa kweli ni swala la kutamausha ya kwamba unapotembea katika maeneo ya gatuzi lako unakumbana na wananchi ambao wamepeana huduma kwa wakati mwafaka, lakini wanaanza kutafuta ni nani watamuongelesha ili waweze kulainisha wale wahusika waweze kulipa madeni hayo. Ningependa kulaani na kukashifu vikali kwa sababu watu walipokuwa wanahudumia gatuzi zetu kwa kupeana huduma tofauti tofauti walifanya kwa mapenzi makubwa wakijua wanafanya uzalendo kwa jamii yetu, lakini imegeuka na kuwa kirba goji kirba, kuona kwamba wakati wa malipo inakuwa ni kilio. Bwana Spika, nikinukuu statement ya mwenzangu ni kwamba tungependa pia kujua huyu anayesema anadai, je, ni wapi alifanya mradi gani, alijenga dispensary gani katika gatuzi yetu, alipeana huduma ya aina gani? Na tungependa pia kujua magavana wanatumia njia gani ama mbinu gani ya kuona kwamba wamemlipa yule waliyemlipa, na kwa nini wale ambao hawajalipwa hawajapata malipo yao. Nikiweza kutumia mfano mmoja wa mama mmoja kutoka kule Bungoma County ambaye alikuwa anafanya supplies Kamkuya market, aliweza kulia ili alipwe deni lake, hatimaye akafariki na kuaga dunia. Na jambo la kusikitisha, hadi leo familia yake haijaweza kupata malipo hayo. Ningependa tu kujua kwa nini tunaweka Wakenya katika hali ngumu ya kwamba wanakwenda kuchukua madeni, wanafanya biashara na serikali, na kutokamana na pesa ambazo tunazipeana katika gatuzi kama serikali, bado watu wale wanahangaishwa bila kulipwa malipo yao. Ningependa kama seneta mchanga na wakike, kwa sababu hata wale watoto wa vijana wa kiume na wa kike ambao wanajaribu na wangependa sana kufanya biashara na serikali, wanaingiwa na uoga wa kuchukua loan kutoka katika taasisi tofauti tofauti ili kujihusisha na serikali. Ningependa sisi kama viongozi tuweze kurekebisha tabia hiyo ili tuweze kulisukuma gurudumu la serikali yetu mbele. Asante Bwana Spika.
Senator Chiranke.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Sir, mine is just to comment on the issue of toy market fire incident. My heart goes out to at least, I think, 4 families who have lost their loved ones, and also many Kenyans who are hustling, trying to make a living. Mr. Speaker, you know, most of our clothes, some of us who are not opulent and flamboyant, we get most of our clothes from toy market, Mr. Speaker. And therefore it is gainsaid, and it is some of them. I think the majority leader has been accused of being opulent before, buying a very expensive shoe, so he might not be aware what is being sold in toy market, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, and therefore the essence, we must be, the essence, Mr. Speaker, goes without gainsaying. In the last financial year, 100 million Kenya shillings was allocated. I have gone an extra mile, Mr. Speaker, to check on finance budget of Nairobi County. Mr. Speaker, could it be somebody who was burning down toy market to ensure the auditor of the Office General, Mr. Speaker, could not audit the 100 million where it went in the issue of toy market, Mr. Speaker? I think it is very unfortunate, Mr. Speaker. And you could see the governor was running from rain of stones because people do not believe on the action that is being done to address the issues, Mr. Speaker. The fire that has consumed toy market has been more fire than we will see in hell that will be used in sulfur, as the book of Revelation has told us, Mr. Speaker. We cannot and we shall not allow. I want to request, Mr. Speaker, that this matter, the national security, and I'm a bit surprised, Mr. Speaker, because the vice chairperson was telling us the national security should take note, and the vice chairperson is Senator Nyamu, who was reading the same statement. But I want to encourage, Mr. Speaker, that the committee should visit toy market and assess, Mr. Speaker. And I saw Senator, our big brother, the next AU chairman, Raila Odinga, donated 1.5 million. I want to encourage Senator Sifuna, we do something, we contribute to compliment on Baba Raila what he did, Mr. Speaker. But I want also to discourage him in saying Mbadi has gotten CS. Let us allow the National Assembly to finish adopting the report. Because before saying that you will walk to National Treasury, Mr. Speaker. But I will want to teach Sifuna how to get to National Treasury, because I know the closest he has come, Mr. Speaker, is when he's demonstrating, especially during last year's Mandamano, Mr. Speaker. So, Mr. Speaker, we want to investigate this issue of toy and other market fires that we are seeing in Nairobi. It is rampant, Mr. Speaker. Could it be because of land grabiosis? I bet it could be. I thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I support.
Senator Abbas.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I also want to add my voice to those who are talking about Benny Bill in support of Senator for Bungoma. Honorable Speaker, the issue of Benny Bill actually has become a cancer within the counties. That many people are suffering, that many people were not able to pay their bills, because when you want to go and do contracts with counties, you sign agreement and you sign conditions, and after finishing the job, you are supposed to be paid. I don't see why there is no cause for Honorable Speaker why there should be a Benny Bill, because this money has already been budgeted for. So it's the counties guys should be able to live within their means. In my county, Honorable Speaker, it's a very unfortunate situation. In the past regime, the current government have inherited 5.5 billion shillings. And some of this money cannot be accounted for, because even the documentation is not there. And the contractors are having their contracts, documents. But the problem is, it is not there in record for the counties. And some of this money cannot even be paid. Honorable Speaker, many of these people have actually facing a lot of problems. They've been sued. Their property have been now auctioned by the banks. And therefore, it's actually a very, very, very unfortunate situation. Honorable Speaker, the problem is actually, I will request the Finance Committee to please take this matter very seriously, because when we are making budgets and when releasing funds to these counties, then I think the counties now should be compelled to release the list of those contractors and those businessmen who give the services, to at least to tell the Senate how much money they owe the contractors and the service providers. As it is actually, this Senate must be able to come in. The House must help the people of Kenyans, the Kenyans, who are there, who have not paid their money, and up to now they have not been paid. 10 years down the line, from 2013, like my place, since 2013, you still have Benny bills. And every time the money is being released to the counties. So I'm really surprised why we should not be able to help the counties. Well, even the delegations like the pensioners and the gratuities, those who work with the counties, cannot even access the money they contributed. The money is being used diverted for other purposes. So I think this is a criminal case. And I will request the Finance Committee, please help us out of these problems. Because every time we go to counties, the first thing I get problems with my county is that people come to me and say, Mr. Senator, we are being owed a lot of money, we are not being paid. So I think this nuisance will stop and people's money must be paid. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Sek.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I also had my voice to several statements. Statement from Senator Siengo and Senator Wakoli on the issue of pending bills and vocational training institutions on the capitation. Honorable Speaker, as we know very well that technical institutions and vocational VTCs, vocational training institutions in counties, are very integral and important institutions that brings skilled labor to our counties and to our young men and women within the counties. We want to say that these are very important institutions that needs really to be focused in on. And I want to say that the capitation with national government through the Ministry of Education is a very important program that needs to be observed. And the national government needed to look at it and see that the students within these institutions needs to be paid that money. And so that we don't have problems of skills, particularly to those students also who have low grades to this institution, because they are expecting to have, for us to have, and even see skilled laborers in our in our factories, in our counties. Honorable Speaker, the issue of pending bill has been a big problem to our counties, and I don't know why. We have been saying all this all along, and we don't have a focus and a programmed way on how we handle pending bills in our counties. Honorable Speaker, I think it is a matter of this House to come up with a procedure on how we will handle these problems once and for all. I want to appreciate that Honorable Ledama has come up with a bill, and we want to fast track this bill so that at least we get a way forward on these pending bills, because it has really caused a lot of problems, harm to our people, harm to even business people, the contractors that have been entrusted to do business to counties, and even national government have gone to losses. So, Honorable Speaker, I want to come to support of these two bills, and thank you very much for the time that you have given me. Thank you.
Senator Mutinda, Tabitha.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I first want to support Senator Siengo's statement in regards to the issue of the TVETs, and I want to support my colleagues as far as the emphasis of the importance of the skills and knowledge that is normally acquired by our very young people, and also noting that TVETs are much more affordable in this country. Without them, this capitation, it gives challenges. We've seen how young people have been up and down in the streets, and ensuring that these institutions are well financed gives them the opportunity that they deserve. Number two, Mr. Speaker, is on the statement as far as the pending bills issue is concerned. An issue that as Finance and Budget Committee, we've really tried to look at it. And during the last DORA, on approval of the 400 billion, Mr. Speaker, we had the delegation of the governors led by the COG, Madam Anne Waiguru, and I personally emphasized on the thorn and the animal called the pending bills, which has affected highly our different contractors in the different counties. Mr. Speaker, I think it is a high time, even as a Committee of Finance, now rethink on amendments in the PFM in regards to before any new contracts are awarded to any new suppliers and contractors, the previous ones, their bills be cleared, all their payments be made, even before new contracts are awarded. And this should be the way to go, an amendment on the procurement laws and all that, because the animal has been there, because mostly new governors come in with their new people, and the old people keep on being in the same system, not being paid. Lastly is on the issue of the toy market, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the different markets that we have in this Nairobi have really been affected by the issue of fire. The issue of fire is something that we've also communicated as a Nairobi people, and the governor should take different strategic measures. For example, ensuring that each and every market has a set aside lorry with full equipment of taking care of the fire tragedies that we've seen. My condolences goes also to the families that have lost their beloved one. Mr. Speaker, as far as the issue of treasury is concerned, I had my Senator of Nairobi, Senator Sifuna, talk about liaising closely with the nominee who will be appointed for treasury. It's an indication that as the SG of ODM, he's embracing broad government by embracing his brother as he settles to the Ministry of Treasury. And it is positive, because now with those efforts, then we'll be able to ensure also these issues are well taken care of, the capitation, the pending bills, and any other issues that will be able to arise as we look forward as a Finance Committee to get full support from the Ministry of Treasury with the nominee as he settles. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator, Senate Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, just two quick things, and I say this just quickly after the Vice Chair of the Budget and Finance Committee, that Mr. Speaker, as a House, we must also become a bit more serious in how we undertake our duty, because the people of this Republic voted us into this House so that we can legislate, represent, oversight, so as to ensure that we propagate solutions that make their lives better. Mr. Speaker, even as every afternoon issues are brought to fore via statements by our colleagues, we must then ask ourselves, how is it that at committee level, or even at the level of the plenary of the entire House, we can quickly resolve many of the issues that come before us. I say that, Mr. Speaker, to say this. This issue of pending bills has been with us for about 6 years now, pending bills in our county governments. Isn't it about time, Mr. Speaker, that our Budget and Finance Committee actually sets the bar a bit higher so that the contracting agent, that is the county governments, Mr. Speaker, can be more fiscally responsible, apart from just the many nice things that we say in this afternoon to appear to be concerned for the people of this republic, Mr. Speaker. I'd expect that either Senator Ali Roba or Senator Tabitha Mutinda will begin to move us towards an amendment to the PFM Act, Mr. Speaker, that sets actually pending bills as a first charge to the consolidated fund of our county governments, Mr. Speaker, so that governors do not end up contracting new services before, first of all, paying for that which they consumed the previous financial year, Mr. Speaker. Otherwise, year on year, we shall continue dealing with this problem the same way we have dealt with it the last 6 years, that occasionally such a matter appears before the Senate, and we speak on behalf of the people that we represent and say how we are concerned and dismayed at the behavior of governors. But we are the only ones, Mr. Speaker, who have the powers to resolve this issue. Therefore, I expect that the Budget and Finance Committee, Mr. Speaker, when we resume from recess, will be ready with an amendment towards the fulfillment of the desire of many citizens who work and contract services for and on behalf of our county governments, Mr. Speaker, to ensure that they benefit. Lastly, Mr. Speaker,
Senator Kavindu.
No, Mr. Speaker, I was interrupted. Somebody was speaking. That's why I kept quiet for
Clerk,
about a minute.
How many minutes has the majority leader spoken?
For like a minute only.
Okay, proceed to conclude in 2 minutes. Proceed to conclude.
I hope you'll save me the time, Mr. Speaker.
2 minutes.
Okay. Then the final thing, Mr. Speaker, was on this fire of toy market. Even on this one, last week, we moved a land amendment bill before this House that is now pending before the committee of the House, Mr. Speaker. And part of what we expect to do from that particular piece of legislation, Mr. Speaker, is to ensure that all public utility lands, Mr. Speaker, are given titles in their name. These fires that you see in Kikomba, in Mtindwa, in Toy Market, Mr. Speaker, is all about people trying to take ownership of this land, Mr. Speaker. Therefore, I hope that senators can find time, either this afternoon or tomorrow, we conclude on that amendment bill so that all public land that you're supposed to build public institutions, Mr. Speaker, we conclude on that particular issue. Otherwise, Mr. Speaker, we will end up being like my good friend Senator Cherargei, who's speaking about opulence while wearing the most expensive watch I've ever seen in this House.
Senator Kavindu.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me this opportunity to add my voice to the two statements for Senator Wakoli and Senator Beth Siengo. Mr. Speaker, just like many of the senators have said, this issue of pending bills runs across all the counties, all the 47 counties. Mr. Speaker, I've heard majority leaders say that for the last 6 years, but like in Machakos, I'm counting more than 10 years of pending bills being carried forward. Actually, I would recommend that the Finance Committee come up with an amendment law that the controller of budget will not release money to the counties when they have pending bills until they clear all the pending bills, because before they give any work, they have money allocated for that work. And where that money goes and then it becomes a pending bill is a mystery to this House. Mr. Speaker, also the capitation fund not only for TVET, but for even secondary schools and universities. It's delayed so much, and TVET colleges, institutions, train our youths, and they come out of there when they are, people are useful to do something with their lives in this country, and good citizens with a lot of skills to work. And so their capitation should be released like yesterday, even for universities and secondary schools. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Olekina.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, this afternoon I'm at a loss of words as I write to support the statement by Senator Wakoli. Mr. Speaker, I've been in this Senate for now about 7 years plus. And when I came into this Senate, I was told by those who came before me that the Senate pronounces itself through motions and bills. And I was told that if anybody failed to comply with the resolution of the Senate, that person faces various consequences, which include, 1, censure, number 2, even to the extent of being removed from office. Mr. Speaker, we have censured cabinet secretaries in this House for failing to comply on the Senate resolution. I'm at a loss of word as to why we should continue lamenting on this issue of pending bills. This Senate passed a resolution by delegation. Article 123 of the Constitution is quite clear. It says that the Senate shall vote by delegations. 24 delegations. In fact, we had 38 votes, if I can remember. So, Mr. Speaker, this issue of pending bills, it's very simple. We follow the law. If we in this Senate cannot be able to make sure that we stop the funds from going to counties, not talking about amending the laws. Why do we need to amend the laws when the regulations are very clear that pending bills form first charge of account? So it's very simple. Some of us will have to take other extra measures to ensure that they comply, because we are told here that they will only comply if we stop them in court, because the Constitution, if you read Article, I think 255, it is only the cabinet secretary who can be able to stop money from going to counties, but only for a small period of about 90 days. So the only thing we have is now to resort to court, if this Senate is failing, to force the implementation of a resolution of this House, which was quite clear. It said all counties must pay a minimum of 1 billion shillings by the end of the last financial year. So the thing we should do here with the Finance Committee, now that we do not have an implementation committee, is to self-implement. We follow through, we ensure that we check, are they paying, they are not paying. If they are not paying, then we move forward. You know, as far as I'm concerned, you might end up seeing me in court in the next few weeks to compel these counties to be able to respect this Senate. I cannot sit in this Senate if these counties cannot respect. What are we doing here? Majority Leader, can we please move? This is your house. Your motions have got to be respected. We have a bunch of lawyers here, including Chimera, out there. Instead of him taking us to court to try and stop us from getting oversight funds.
Senator Omtata.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. I would like to contribute to the motion on pending bills. These pending bills have basically morphed into a form of borrowing by county governments, because they are given budgets, then for some reason they end up with pending bills, which then again have to come back to the public to finance. And my Lord, Mr. Speaker, sir, borrowing by counties is regulated by the Constitution, Article 212. and a county government may only borrow if the national government guarantees the loan and with the approval of the county government's assembly. You find that these pending bills are creations of the executive who refuse to operate within their budgets, who are manipulating the IFMI system by voiding what has been approved and diverting money. And I think that the governors who have been in office during when these pending bills were created should not go scot-free. Their feet must be held to the fire, and they must tell us why they are creating a public debt contrary to the Constitution. Because the people of Kenya are being forced to pay for what they should have sorted out using supplementary budgets and similar stuff. So as we go forward in terms of settling pending bills and to dissuade this culture from continuing, I urge that the consideration of the statement goes as far as making recommendations on how to handle rogue governors who end up using their procurement powers within budgets approved by the control of budget to create pending bills. If they don't pay bills, they must face the music. It must not come back to the public to go and pay pending bills. We cannot be crying here about pending bills when the Constitution is very clear on how we should incur public debt. Backdoor public debt should not be paid. It's not a sovereign debt. It's a regime debt. And if the public pays it, the regime owners must be held to account. So I think that this thing of playing around with kid gloves about pending bills will not solve it unless we punish individual governors. Madam Speaker, thank you. When I began to ask Mr. Speaker, and I can say to Madam Speaker, thank you for the opportunity.
Senator Karen Nyamo.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I want to speak to the issue of pending bills, Madam Speaker. As my colleagues have said before me, and since I got to this House, this is about the 6th or 7th or 8th time we are having this issue tabled before this House, the issue of the pending bills. While when I see companies like KQ apply for bailouts, we see the government paying off 55 billion, 7 billion, 37 billion, almost immediately. While our SMEs, who actually are the backbone of our economy, and we're saying we want to grow the economy bottom up, but we pay a deaf ear to these businesses who have the potential to significantly affect our economy, Mr. Speaker. I don't know if you are aware that, for example, in Nairobi, Governor Sakaja will not pay Governor Sonko's pending bills, for example. It is out there. It is in public domain. And vice versa. Governor Kidero's pending bills will not be paid. And I wonder, why are we punishing our people for doing business with the county government? We're the ones who should be encouraging this relationship by our young people and giving them hope that the government can be trusted. And the rich people and the big business people take advantage because they're connected. And sometimes you find bids have been floated and only one person, or sometimes not even one person, has been responsive to, has responded to the bid because of the fear that they will not be paid. And that makes the big business people thrive, being the only ones who are doing business with county governments because they are assured of payment, Madam Speaker. I think if we decided to sort this issue of pending bills as a Senate, because it concerns us, it concerns the counties, we can put our foot down and have the pending bills paid as far as the first county government, Madam Speaker, because I don't know if when we're talking about the pending bills, we are aware that there are people, contractors who have never been paid as far as 2013, Madam Speaker. Thank you.
Senator David Wakoli Wafula.
Asante Mheshimiwa Spika kwa nafasi hii. Kwanza ni kuwapigia pole walioathirika kwa janga la moto katika soko la Toi, na kwamba Mheshimiwa Spika, ni jambo ambalo sisi kama Senate lazima tuangazie magatuzi yetu na jinsi wamejiandaa kukabiliana na janga la moto katika kaunti zetu. Mheshimiwa Spika, ni jambo la kusononesha sana kwa sababu baadhi ya kaunti za Kenya hazina magari ya kuzima moto na vifaa mahususi vinavyoweza kutumika kuzima moto. Hivi kwamba janga linapotokea, yao ni kushika simu, kuuliza moto ulianzia wapi, unafanana namna gani, watu wamejaa ama hawajajaa, barabara inapita ama ipitiki, na huku watu mali yao inachomeka, vifaa vinaharibika na maisha yanaangamia. Sasa ni jambo ambalo kama jumba la Senate tuanze kuangazia mambo ya kujiandaa kwa kaunti zetu kukabiliana na majanga, ili mali ya Wakenya, wanabiashara wa Kenya isije kuharibika. Jambo la pili ni hoja iliyoulizwa na Mheshimiwa Betsiengo kuhusiana na vyuo anuwai, na tunapoangazia miundombinu na jinsi vyuo hivi vinafadhiliwa, Mheshimiwa Spika, ni jambo la kusononesha sana katika kaunti zetu. Juzi tumekuwa na governor wa kaunti ya Bungoma, na baadhi ya accounts zao za benki wanaotia sahihi kwa matumizi ya pesa hawajulikani ni kina nani, walianza kazi hizi vipi, na hii ni ishara kwamba tusipoangaza macho yetu ya jinsi pesa zinavyotumika, baadhi ya vyuo hivi vitatumika kama ng'ombe za kiuchumi ambazo zitaweza kukamuliwa kwa niaba ya Wakenya. Mwisho kabisa ni kuwarai senators wenzangu, wakati umefika serikali inapokaza kamba kuhakikisha utepetevu na tolewa katika idara na mawaziri kadhaa tulionao, hata katika sekta na katika mawizara katika kaunti zetu, tuhakikishe kwamba ugatuzi na fedha zinatumika ipasavyo. Asante Mheshimiwa Spika.
The last person to comment is Senator Eric Okongo Mugeni.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I wanted to make a comment on this issue of pending bills. And I wanted to inform Majority Leader that if we were to have an honest conversation around this issue of pending bills, it's all about interests of certain governors, Madam Speaker, who will never release payments to certain contractors unless there is something they are getting as a kickback. That's where the problem is. So, Majority Leader, through you, Speaker, we need to have a conversation, a very honest conversation, on how we deal with this cancer called corruption. Because it's all around the interest of a sitting governor. If a new governor comes into office and finds there's a contractor who was recruited by the previous governor, there is that fear that they will not approach them to get a kickback. So they will divert the money that they get in that financial year to pay another contractor whom they are able to cut a deal with. So let's involve all the stakeholders in this industry. We have a conversation with EACC so that they can give us a proposal on how we criminalize this idea of leaving out contractors who are given contracts by the previous governor, but whom the new governor does not intend to pay. It's the same problem Senator Mutinda is talking about, Senator Sakaja. You go to Nyamira, it's the same thing. We are unable to complete our county referral hospital because, Madam Speaker, the sitting governor is not willing to pay the contractor because the contractor was recruited by the late Governor Nyagarama. The same thing with Manga Stadium. You see these things in the audit reports year in, year out. So the best thing is let's amend the law, especially ethics and anti-corruption legislation, Mr. Speaker, so that if there is a procurement plan and work has been done and certificates have been issued, if a governor refuses to pay, we make it a criminal case. Because all we want to confirm, Madam Speaker, is that work was given out, work was done, there is confirmation from professionals that service provider should be paid, and then we release money, Madam Speaker. World all over, the biggest trading partner is normally government. And the government must demonstrate that when you are doing business with the government, you are dealing with a business partner that has integrity, who will be able to pay for services and work that has been rendered. Madam Speaker, how can we allow our people who are in business to have their homes auctioned because...
Thank you, Senator. Honorable Senators, I have a communication, and I would like to acknowledge the presence in the public gallery this afternoon of visiting teachers and students from Bungoma Secondary School in Bomet County. The delegation comprises 6 teachers and 68 students who are in the Senate for a one-day academic exposition. Honorable Senators, in our usual tradition of receiving and welcoming visitors to Parliament, I extend a warm welcome to them, and on behalf of the Senate and on my own behalf, wish them a fruitful time of learning. Thank you. I would request Majority Leader to just welcome them very briefly.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I want to take this opportunity to welcome these students from Bungoma School, from the neighboring county of Bomet. Senator Sige was here earlier, and I think he must be just somewhere within the precincts of Parliament. I hope they have a full value for the time that they have taken to come and learn 1 or 2 things from our operations here in the Senate. Mr. Speaker, I wish them well in their endeavors, work hard in school so that you can be trailblazers and leaders in all the spheres of society, from the political to all aspects that you can imagine of what you want to be in future. I wish these students well. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Madam Speaker.
Thank you, Majority Leader. I will now reorganize the order paper and defer order number 8 and order number 9, and I will request the clerk to call out order number 10.
Order number 10, motion, joint report of the Standing Committee on Health of the Senate and the Departmental Committee of Health of the National Assembly on the approval of Dr. Patrick Omwanda Amoth, EBS, for appointment as the Director General for Health. Resumption of debate interrupted on Tuesday, 6th August 2024.
Honorable Senators, we are now proceeding to division, having ascertained we have quorum. And Honorable Senators, I want to now put the question with respect to the joint reports of the Standing Committee on Health of the Senate and Departmental Committee on Health of the National Assembly on the approval of Dr. Patrick Omwanda Amoth, EBS, for appointment as the Director General for Health. I now put the question that the Senate adopts the joint reports of the Standing Committee on Health of the Senate and the Departmental Committee on Health of the National Assembly on the approval of a nominee for the appointment as Director General for Health, and laid on the table of the Senate on Thursday, 1st August 2024, and further that pursuant to Section 16(2) of the Health Act, Cap 241, and Section 8(2) of the Public Appointments Parliamentary Approval Act, approves the nomination of Dr. Patrick Omwanda Amoth, EBS, for appointment as the Director General for Health. Will as many as are of that opinion say aye? Aye. Will as many as are of contrary opinion say nay? The ayes have it. Next order. What is your point, Senator?
Madam Speaker, thank you for the communication. But I don't know whether you observed the way the Honorable Senator for Bungoma was roaming all over the House while you are doing the communication, Madam Speaker. It's really demeaning for him to be moving about. You know, and first of all, he doesn't respect you. And number two, he doesn't respect a mouth. And number three, he doesn't respect broad-based spirit on this House. Madam Speaker, I think you should make a compliment to him. Thank you.
If Senator for Bungoma did that, he's lucky to have escaped my eye. So he will not be reprimanded because I did not see him. And I would hope that Senator for Bungoma does respect the broad-based government and does respect the chair and does respect Dr. Amoth. Next order.
Order number 11, motion, consideration of the National Assembly amendments to the Equalization Fund Appropriation Bill number 2, Senate Bill number 30 of 2023.
I want to invite the Chairperson, Standing Committee on Finance and Budgets, to move the motion.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And I rise on the motion on the amendments to the Equalization Fund Appropriation number 2 Bill of 2023, Madam Speaker. I beg to move that the National Assembly amendments to the Equalization Fund be considered now as below, as per the committee considerations, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I would want the House to note that the Equalization Appropriation Bill 2023, which was also Senate Bill 30 of 2023, after it's published, it was taken through the normal process of the bill, concurrence to at the National Assembly level, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, the National Assembly considered and passed the bill on the 13th of June this year, 2024, but, Madam Speaker, they passed with amendments. These amendments, Madam Speaker, came in with a reduction, Madam Speaker, a reduction of an amount of 790 million. This reduction, Madam Speaker, is that I have been on this same floor on the issue of Equalization Fund. The reduction came from 10.8 billion to 10.0 billion, Madam Speaker. Now, this budgetary reduction was affected during the supplementary estimates for the financial year 23-24 due to the significant delay in the passage of the Equalization Fund Appropriation Bill into law, Madam Speaker. Now, I emphasize on the issue of the delay and significant delay, Madam Speaker, for that matter, because as Senate on our side, we've ensured that we've done timely approval and passage of the same bills as far after concurrence, but there has been a delay which now affected this appropriation. Madam Speaker, at the sitting of the Senate on 3rd of July this year, the Speaker of the Senate on this floor of the House made the same communication regarding the amendments by the National Assembly on the same bill, and these issues were referred to our committee. Through the membership of the same committee, which I always am very grateful to sit, Madam Speaker, two issues were noted, Madam Speaker, that there is a tendency, a routine tendency on reduction of allocations to the Equalization Bill, among other amounts, Mr. Speaker, as we've also seen in the division of revenue, as National Assembly has always alluded to and executed reductions of funds that Senate does allocate. This Equalization Fund has been affected by the same. There has been massive reduction. Madam Speaker, it is good for the House to note that the total allocation for this fund since inception amounted to 62.4 billion. But there has been arrears because the only disbursement that has been done has only been 22.4 billion. As we speak, Madam Speaker, there are actual arrears amounting to 48.8 billion, Madam Speaker. As much as we as senators do support highly devolution, and as we know the purpose of the Equalization Fund, then without the adherence to the law and the effects that come with it, then it affects the goals, the achievements that needed to be achieved with the Equalization Fund, Madam Speaker, due to simple terms of English that I keep on repeating and say, delay. Madam Speaker, in this regard, the National Treasury had also not honored its commitment to the Senate that the arrears due to the Equalization Fund will progressively be provided in the budget and transferred to the appropriation fund for its utilization. Madam Speaker, we had, as a committee, summoned the former CS for Treasury on the same. He gave his word that these funds will be dispersed and dispersed on time. We did our due diligence as required, but to our disappointment, this had never been effected. Madam Speaker, also, the Equalization Fund Appropriation Act, which is in place, does not have any resource allocation. Notably, the National Treasury committed to the committee that this amount be allocated in the supplementary budget for financial year 23-24, but it was not done. The Equalization Appropriation Bill was meant for financial year 23-24, which has also lapsed. Madam Speaker, as a committee, we deliberated very much on this issue as far as the amendments of the National Assembly were concerned. And as a committee, we came to a conclusion that the Senate Finance and Budget Committee does reject the amendments of the National Assembly on the Equalization Fund. And Madam Speaker, this is where I would want the House to really support the recommendations of us as a committee. Because if we continue allowing that reductions always be put in place, and as we speak, the funds have not been appropriated, it becomes a challenge, and yet it is in law. Madam Speaker, allow me to quote Article 219 of the Constitution, which talks about that a county's share of revenue raised by the national government shall be transferred to the county without undue delay and without deduction, except when the transfer has been stopped under Article 225, Madam Speaker. So since this had been approved, all that was needed is appropriation and timely disbursement, but this has not been adhered to. There has been reductions with the amendments by the National Assembly, and our recommendation as a committee was simply to reject those particular amendments. At this point, Madam Speaker, allow me to appreciate the Office of the Speaker, the Clerk, and also the Secretariat that we always work with, and not forgetting the commitment that the members of the Finance Committee have always dedicated and shown, led by our able chair, Ali Roba, our colleague, Senator Eddy, Senator Faki, Senator Boni, Senator Shakila, Senator Onyonka, Senator Joyce Corril, and also Senator Tabitha Keroche, who've been committed and ensured that we execute our roles and mandate. At this time, I call in Senator Boni Halwale to second. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Honorable Speaker, I rise to second this motion. And Mr. Speaker, I want to strongly request colleagues in this House that we must reject the attempt by the National Assembly to reduce the money that was meant for equalization to any other figure. And Mr. Speaker, I'm talking about the letter and spirit of the Constitution of Kenya. In 2005, when delegates carefully drawn from all groups of stakeholders met in Bomet and unanimously agreed that the historical injustice that had been visited upon some of the arid and semi-arid counties where they were deliberately from 1965 marginalized, we agreed as delegates that we needed to right that wrong. And Mr. Speaker, we not only wrote it into the Constitution, but even stated that this is a deliberate move not to fight poverty, but to fight a historical injustice of deliberate marginalization. Mr. Speaker, at that time, 14 beneficial counties were identified. I don't know what happened, Leader of Majority, while I was away for 5 years. How marginalization morphed into the need to use equalization funds to fight poverty. Poverty exists in all our counties, Nairobi included, and the privileged Kiambu included. Privileged because Kiambu has written in the history of this country that they have produced 2 presidents, one for 15 years, another one for 10 years, a total of 25 years. And Mr. Speaker, the old bad mindset, part of the reason why our children are pouring in the streets in the name of Gen Z, is that development has tended to follow where the executive comes from. So, Mr. Speaker, we needed to write this.
Honorable Senator, don't confuse the public any further by referring to the chairs, Mr. Speaker. Please correct that.
Madam Speaker, my apologies, but you know some of us come from the old school of English, the old school of religion, that defines that when you say he with respect, you mean all the women and all the men. But with due respect, Madam Speaker, I am so guided. Madam Speaker, I am reflecting on this point. You know, when we moved from 14 counties to benefit from this fund to now 34 counties, we missed it by several kilometers. Madam Speaker, if you look today at the counties that benefit from devolution, from equalization fund, you'll be shocked. A green county, the green jewel of Kenya, called Kericho, with due respect to the Senator of Kericho, who is the leader of majority, is one of the counties benefiting. Really? Kericho? The green county? That you allow it to compete for funds for water with the Turkana. Mr. Speaker, the leader of the majority last month made a very emotional speech in this house.
Senator Mwinyi Haji Mohamed Faki would like to inform you. Would you be obliged to receive that information?
Yes, I would like to be informed by my good
You may
colleague.
proceed.
To inform my brother and colleague in the finance committee that Turkana, there is Lake Turkana and another river that traverses the center of the county of Turkana. So there is no Takwel, yes. So there is no shortage of water in Turkana. Thank you.
You may proceed, Senator Boni Halwale.
Mr. Speaker, in the good old days of Speaker Kaparo, and I'm not casting in any way any aspersions against you. If in the old days of Ole Kaparo, the senator of Mombasa would have been thrown out of the house immediately for that remark that there is too much water in Turkana. Mr. Speaker, this is the same impunity that we saw in South Africa when Steve Biko was lying there dying from hunger. The white leaders who were in parliament that day were saying that Steve Biko was just having a headache and he would be fine. We have to be mindful of the challenges in Turkana. I know the senator of Mombasa is not a well-traveled man. He's a professional who has been a bookworm. All the way from the days he was in high school up to now, when he's a good lawyer, he has to read all the time. There is no water in Turkana, I'm telling you. And Tana River, and Baringo, and Wajir, and Mandera, the counties that we wanted to give water, give electricity, give roads. and health facilities so that they can come close to Nairobi, close to Kiambu, close to Murang'a, close to Meru. And today, Meru is competing for those funds. Anyway, Mr. Speaker, Madam Speaker, I want to support that we should reject this deliberate effort to water down the intention of equalization, because before we know it, it is now only remaining 7 years. In 7 years' time, the period for equalization will have come to an end. And the billions that were supposed to have been taken there, now amounting to 48.8 billion, have never gone there into the equalization fund account. So we will soon be asked by this constitution to extend the period of equalization. With those many remarks, I second and I really beg colleagues, let us reject this proposal from the National Assembly. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you. Honourable Senators, I propose the question that the National Assembly amendments to the Equalization Fund Appropriation Number 2 Bill, Senate Bill Number 30 of 2023, be now considered. I will invite Senators to make contributions to this motion. Senator Danson Mungatana.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for giving me the opportunity to make my contribution. On the onset, Madam Speaker, I want...
Danson, I hope you'll be minded of the fact that several people would like to contribute, and of your own volition, make it a business of 3 minutes. Pause.
Five, Madam Speaker, 5.
It's in agreement, 5 minutes for
Yes.
each senator. Thank you.
So, Madam Speaker, very quickly, Tana River County, Madam Speaker, is a beneficiary of the Equalization Fund. And Madam Speaker, these are realities. Last week, when I was at home, I was informed that large areas like Vumbwe, Ceylon, Wema, and all those areas near the Tarda irrigation scheme, they do not have electricity. And they had this high hope, Madam Speaker, that they will be able to access electricity because the processes of Equalization Fund, which included sitting down in the ward level, agreed that instead of voting for water, voting for the other things, they would all agree on electricity, because electricity would affect the entire ward. And Madam Speaker, 30 million was allocated for that purpose. And everybody has been wondering, where is the electricity? So, Madam Speaker, it is really very sad to hear today that the National Assembly has voted to remove 790 million from the monies that Senate had passed, 10.7 billion. So, Madam Speaker, for us, it is a reality that what the National Assembly has done, it has voted against the interest of Tana River County. And Madam Speaker, I stand on behalf of the people of Tana River as a delegation that we say that we must reject that reduction. Why? Because we are waiting for the electricity, the 30 million that we voted for this Equalization Fund. We are waiting in various projects that we had passed, Madam Speaker. I think sometimes the National Assembly does not connect as much as we do with our counties. So, Madam Speaker, sometimes they pass votes, they pass bills, they pass decisions that are anti-people. How can you marginalize the already marginalized? Madam Speaker, when you are cutting money that is supposed to go to the 36 counties where marginalization was orchestrated from the 1965 sessional paper number 10 up to today, Madam Speaker, it is marginalizing the already marginalized. So, Madam Speaker, I will just end it there by saying what the Senate Finance Committee has recommended in this report is what we should all stand. We should stand behind the Senate Finance Committee and reject that reduction of the money to the counties that have been marginalized, because it defeats the whole purpose of the Equalization Fund. We wanted this Equalization Fund so that it can help our people. So, Madam Speaker, I am trying to be as brief as I can. I beg to support. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
And thank you. Senator Cheruiyot Aaron, Majority Leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I'll be very, very brief because I just want to correct one misnomer that has been set by my good friend Senator Boni Halwale, and it's good that I give him history. And the reason I didn't interject him, Mr. Speaker, is because he posed a very important question before contributing, before actually saying the things he said about Kericho County. He asked, what happened? Because by its design and architecture, the Equalization Fund is set aside to try and rectify wrongs of years gone by, where certain sections of a country have been marginalized, either intentionally or unintentionally, Mr. Speaker, by successive regimes, to a point that if you compare to residents, the living standards of residents in a particular part of the country and those of another, Mr. Speaker, then you appreciate that there is need to bring all our citizens at par and appreciate that we live in one country, we all contribute to taxes, Mr. Speaker, and therefore we should get services in equal measure. Madam Speaker, you know, before Senator Boni left this House in 2017, the first allocations of Equalization Fund, and we served with him in Budget and Finance Committee, Madam Speaker, was by counties. And we believed at that particular point, Madam Speaker, the traditional thinking was that there are certain regions, or even counties for that matter, that had long been marginalized. But in their review post the 2019 census, Madam Speaker, the Kenya National Bureau of Statistics, working together with CRA and the Senate, Madam Speaker, reviewed the qualifications of Equalization Fund not to be on a broader geographical space like a county and region, Madam Speaker, but brought it actually to the ward level, which is the least administrative unit that is known to the Kenyan Constitution, Madam Speaker. Therefore, it is not right to think just in terms of a particular county or even a constituency. If you see a particular county listed, Madam Speaker, it is because there are 1, 2, 3, or even 4 sometimes wards in that particular part of the country, Madam Speaker, that if he was to visit today, and I'd wish to challenge Senator Boni as he drives home this weekend, to, instead of taking the Londiani route, which he's fond of taking, Madam Speaker, to drive all the way through Kericho town and visit the lower parts of Kericho, the sugar cane growing regions, Madam Speaker, then he will appreciate why Soin and Soliat ward, for example, qualify, Madam Speaker, to be part of the locations or wards, Madam Speaker, that benefit from Equalization Fund. And he will appreciate, Madam Speaker, that indeed those regions are needy, Madam Speaker, and they are there by right. That was brilliant work that was done by the Budget and Finance Committee of the Senate, together with CRA and Kenya National Bureau of Statistics, where they mapped out the poverty levels in the various parts of the country, Madam Speaker, to ensure that even governors on their own, if it was left to Governor Fernandez Baraza on his own, Senator Boni Halwale, to distribute these resources, chances are he may just do what we politicians do many times, which is distribute resources depending on political whims of the day. but we did a good job as a Senate to map out the specific wards. If you check the allocations to Kakamega County, it is specific wards where these funds have to go to, Madam Speaker. And as the County Assembly of Kakamega does their annual budget, Madam Speaker, they include these funds. And therefore, I think to that level, as a Senate, we did a good job, and we can actually improve on it, Madam Speaker, and go as far as naming the specific location, because you're already at ward level, which is quite impressive. We have traveled an important journey. The final point, Madam Speaker, is that I agree with our committee that this reduction is not justified. Much as we are down, Madam Speaker, in Finance Bill of 2022, 23-24, and 22-23 actually, Madam Speaker, this reduction is too drastic. Unless we sit in a mediation committee and we are able to all agree, and it's demonstrated to us as a House, Madam Speaker, why specifically Equalization Fund. And you know, Madam Speaker, already what should have been devolved in terms of Equalization Fund, Madam Speaker, to these regions is 64 billion shillings. But what has only gone so far is a paltry 13 billion Kenya shillings, Madam Speaker. Therefore, we still, first of all, even without the reduction, are short by 48 billion. And therefore, to reduce it even further, Madam Speaker, doesn't solve our problem. Madam Speaker, I support.
Thank you, Senator. Senator Mwinyi Haji Mohamed Faki.
Asante Bispika kwa kunipa fursa hii kuchangia kamati ya ripoti ya kamati ya fedha na bajeti ya bunge hili kuhusiana na kupunguzwa kwa fedha zinazokwenda kwa mfuko wa usawa na bunge la kitaifa. Mheshimiwa Spika, kifungu cha 204 cha katiba yetu kinasema kwamba kutakuwa na mfuko wa usawa, yani Equalization Fund, ambapo kutalipwa kila mwaka 2% ya fedha ambazo zimekusanywa na serikali kama mapato ya mwaka uliopita. Mheshimiwa Spika, fedha ama akaunti ambazo zinatumika sasa ni za mwaka 2021.
What is your point of order?
Mheshimiwa Speaker, kwa sababu ya lugha ya Kiswahili ingekuwa vema aseme hazina ya usawa kuliko kusema mfuko ya usawa, kwa sababu tunajua mfuko ni zile tunatumia kupepa pesa, kupepa yale mambo mengine. Itakuwa ni kusema hazina ya usawa ndio Wakenya waweze kuelewa, kwa sababu kusema mfuko ina maana mingi. Mheshimiwa Speaker.
Senator Mwinyi Haji Mohamed Faki, please take note and proceed.
Mheshimiwa Speaker, hazina ni treasury. Sasa sijui nimfundishe Kiswahili, ni mwalimu wa Kiswahili hapa ama nitoe mchango wangu. Lakini Mheshimiwa Speaker, mfuko ukiangalia katika kamusi ya Swahili sanifu, mfuko ni fund kwa Kiingereza. Kwa hivyo sijakosea chochote, Senator Cherigei, na utajifunza mengi kwangu. Wewe Mheshimiwa Speaker, hesabu ama accounts ambazo zatumika kutambua ama kutenga fedha hizi ni za mwaka 2021 ambazo ndio tunaweza kusema ni za karibu sana ambazo bunge la kitaifa limeweza kupitisha. Kwa hiyo Mheshimiwa Speaker, mbali na kuwa fedha hizi ni kidogo sana kulingana na vile mapato ya serikali imekuwa, kwa sababu sasa tuko mwaka 2024-25 ambapo mapato yake ni tofauti na yale mapato ambayo yalipatikana mwaka 2020 na 2021. Jambo la pili Mheshimiwa Speaker ni kwamba fedha hizi zinatakana ziwe ni 0.5% ya mapato. Kwa hivyo hawezi kukaa katika bunge la kitaifa wakasema kwamba serikali imekuwa imetenga bilioni ilikuwa imetenga bilioni 10,867 na laki 4. Wakasema kwamba tunapunguza milioni 790 kwenye fedha hizo ili zibaki bilioni 10 milioni 77. Mheshimiwa Spika, kichi kiwango ambacho kimewekwa na katiba. Kwa hivyo wabunge hawana fursa ama hawana hiari ya kusema kwamba watapunguza milioni 790 wabakishe bilioni 10 na milioni 77. Mheshimiwa Spika, hiyo hakuna katika katiba, kwa hivyo ni kinyume na katiba. Kwa hivyo sisi kama bunge la Senate hatuwezi kukubali masuala hayo. Mheshimiwa Spika, jambo la tatu ni kwamba hii hazina ya usawa, Mheshimiwa Spika, kutoka ianzishwe ni mwaka juzi tu, mwaka 2021 nilipokuwa mwenyekiti wa kamati ya sheria endelevu, yani delegated legislation, ndio tuliweza kupitisha zile kanuni ambazo zinatumika sasa kuendesha hazina hii. Na Mheshimiwa Spika, ilikuwa imekaa zaidi ya miaka 10. Hazina hii ilikuwa haina kanuni zile za kuweza kuendesha fedha hizi. Walipeleka kanuni fulani ambazo zilikataliwa na mahakama. Kwa hivyo ikawa miaka 10, Mheshimiwa Spika, miradi imefanywa lakini malipo hayawezi kulipwa kwa sababu hakuna sheria endelevu za kuweza kuhakikisha kwamba fedha hazina hii inafanya kazi. Kwa hiyo Mheshimiwa Spika, ni masikitiko kwamba mpaka sasa hatujaweza katika Kenya hatujaweza kupata hazina hii kusaidia zile sehemu ambazo zimetengwa kwa muda mrefu. Mheshimiwa Spika, kwanza zilikuwa ni sehemu 14, kaunti 14, sasa zimekuwa kaunti 34. Na nina hakika tukiangalia ile mfumo wa kugawanya tena wa mara ya tatu, itakuwa labda ni Kenya nzima sasa imeweza kuwa na sehemu ambazo zimetengwa. Mheshimiwa Spika, tukiangalia kama hapa Kiambu ndio sehemu ambayo ina utajiri mkubwa na matajiri wengi, lakini pia utapata katika Kiambu kuna sehemu ambazo zimetengwa. Mheshimiwa Spika, hata hii ugatuzi ilikuwa imekuja ili kuweza kusawazisha katika kaunti zetu, lakini utaona pia Mheshimiwa Spika, sehemu nyingi zimetengwa kwa sababu labda hawakubaliana na gavana aliyeko mamlakani, ama labda MCA wa eneo lile hana uhusiano mzuri na gavana na mambo kama hayo. Kwa hiyo Mheshimiwa Spika, ni muhimu kwamba hazina hii iweze kutumika, na itaweza kutumika tu wakati tutafuata katiba na kuona kwamba kuna usawa wa mambo hayo. Kwa hivyo Mheshimiwa Spika, kwa sababu imepinga katiba, sisi kama Senate lazima tukatae yale mapendekezo ambayo
Senator Mohamed Mwiji Haji, sorry. You can have 1 minute.
Thank you.
Yes, 1 minute.
Asante Mheshimiwa Spika. Kwa Mheshimiwa Spika, tunasema kwamba lazima sisi kama Senate tusimame kidete, kwa sababu mfuko huu ama hazina hii ilitarajiwa kwamba itasaidia kuleta usawa katika nchi yetu, lakini kwa sasa bado Mheshimiwa Spika, tunaona zile sehemu ambazo zinatakana kusaidika hazisaidiki na fedha zinakaa bilioni karibu 48 hazijatumika Mheshimiwa Spika. Kwa hivyo tumeona kwamba kumekuwa na utepetevu kwa upande wa serikali, na hii ni kinyume na katiba. Kwa hivyo lazima tupinge Mheshimiwa Spika. Asante kwa kunipa fursa hii, Bi Spika.
Senator Cherari K. Samson Kiproti.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. And I want to request, Madam Speaker, that in future, at least when pupils and students visit your public gallery, they should not leave without being acknowledged. I think it's the best thing to their experience here. Madam, and you can talk to your secretariat. Madam Speaker, I want to support. I'm proud of Finance and Budget Committee, Madam Speaker, because initially the total allocation since the passage of the Constitution 2010 was 62.4 billion that had been appropriated, but only 22.5 billion has been dispersed so far, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, which means close to 40 billion are yet, Madam Speaker, to be dispersed under Article 204, Madam Speaker. This is a clear violation of Article 219, Madam Speaker. Because when Parliament appropriates money, Madam Speaker, it should be dispersed henceforth, because this money is for equalization. It is for basics. It is not for office expenses. It is for dispensaries in Murang'a, Madam Speaker. It is for dispensaries in Migori, in Nandi, electricity, roads, Madam Speaker. It is for the basics within, Madam Speaker. And that is why, for us in Nandi, I asked the conversation we were having, why is it that Nandi is a land of honey and milk, just like Murang'a, Madam Speaker? But when you come to Nandi, and I've always said here several times, that when you overfly Nandi Hills, you think we live in land of Canaan, because when you see the swords and the beauty of tea plantations, you imagine it's ours. It's not. We are living in a neocolonialism era, Madam Speaker. Those ones you see is our people who are moved to places living like animals, because the multinational companies are now the ones that are planting and managing tea estates, Madam Speaker. And therefore, when you go to like Kapchorwa ward, Madam Speaker, that ward, the roads are impassable, Madam Speaker. The land there is not very friendly, Madam Speaker. There are always some landslides, Madam Speaker. The area of Cherondo, the Reno, around that Kapchorwa ward in totality, the access to electricity is a problem, the access to water, Madam Speaker. Just like Chemelil, Chemase, Madam Speaker, where we border Kisumu, we also have challenges, Madam Speaker, because of the nature of that place. You look at Soba Songo, Madam Speaker, ward in Tindred sub-county, Madam Speaker. Also have similar challenges. One of the biggest wards in Nandi, they don't have roads, they have challenges of electricity, water, Madam Speaker. And this equalization fund, which has been violation of National Treasury, Article 219, is a big problem. Madam Speaker, I would have wished the Finance and Budget Committee would have gone further, Madam Speaker, and sanctioned a few Treasury officials, Madam Speaker, who have violated Article 219 of the Constitution, Kenya 2010, Madam Speaker. And I hope with the possible approval of the CS nominee, CPA John Badi, Madam Speaker, we shall not see such incidences where violation, and I'm happy the county mate and the village mate, Senator Moses Kajwang, is in the House, should take this message, Madam Speaker, to the CS nominee of Treasury, John Badi, that violation of Article 219 should not be tolerated, Madam Speaker. When Parliament has approved it, Madam Speaker, and I'm happy for the first time the Senate has rejected the amendments from the National Assembly. National Assembly has made a habit of overlooking even basic things that are obvious. This was a violation of the Constitution, Madam Speaker. And the National Assembly should have been the ones forcing National Treasury to release equalization. Madam Speaker, who is the beneficiary? If the National Assembly fights Senate, who benefits? This money we fight from morning to evening belongs to the ordinary Wananchi, the Wanjikus, the Onyangos, the Kiprotej, the currents of this world, Madam Speaker. So when you say you reject amendments from the Senate, are you fighting the Senate, the senators, or the people, Madam Speaker? With those very many remarks, I support the rejection of this, of the National Assembly amendment. I thank you, Madam Speaker.
Senator Chiradigi, just for your information, 3 schools have visited Senate today. Bungoma Secondary School in Bomet County, it has been acknowledged. Starehe Boys Center and School has also been acknowledged. And Friends School, Kaveye Girls in Vihiga County, also acknowledged, but they came in different tranches. Maybe that's why you saw some walking in and walking out. But the Secretariat desk is alert to make sure they acknowledge every school. Senator Okech Edigisha.
Finally. Madam Speaker, thank you for giving me this chance to also pass a few comments on this particular bill and report from the committee that I am humbly part of. Madam Speaker, this bill proposal by the National Assembly should be rejected in totality. And I hope that, Madam Speaker, this House will be bolder to even reject any other proposition to be able to deny counties money. For instance, I've seen in the supplementary consolidation, fiscal consolidation proposal from the National Assembly that the monies for the counties from DORA should be reduced from 400 billion to 380 billion. Madam Speaker, that must also be rejected. And there's a reason to this, Madam Speaker. The important fact is that counties do not have the instruments of alternative revenue generation through borrowing as the national government has. And therefore, if we keep on denying counties monies that belong to them, Madam Speaker, is detrimental to the financial health of counties. More importantly, Madam Speaker, this particular Equalization Fund Appropriation Bill, Madam Speaker, there is a part that Kenyans must understand. I think that a few senators have confused a few facts here and there. And I wanted to clarify them, Madam Speaker, that under Article 204 of the Constitution, there is established the Equalization Fund into which 1.5% of all the revenue collected by the national government each year, calculated on the basis of the most recently audited accounts of revenue, shall be put into that money, into that fund, Madam Speaker. I think that a few senators have gotten it wrong. The 62.4 billion is what the counties are entitled to, are entitled for using that formula. It is not the money that the National Treasury has allocated for the Equalization Fund. This is what the counties are entitled to, Madam Speaker. In terms of allocation, the National Treasury has allocated 22.5 billion. That means that we have got about 39.9 billion as a deficit in terms of allocation. This is important, Madam Speaker, because in terms of actual disbursement, the National Treasury since inception has only disbursed 13.6 billion. And that means that this particular fund, which as Senator Boni had indicated has got a sunset clause, has only received 13.6 billion, leaving about a debt to this fund by the National Treasury of 48.8 billion. Why is this serious, Madam Speaker? This is serious because the National Treasury has consistently committed to actually finance that 48.8 billion. I've been in the Finance and Budget Committee, and any time the CS for Finance has showed up in that committee, they have actually committed. Madam Speaker, we have got the Equalization Fund Appropriation Act of 2023 in place that covers 2021-2022, and we have also 2022-2023 in place. And notably, Madam Speaker, the National Treasury did commit to our committees that they will pay for this money, but they haven't. Migori County is denied this money when you go to Miuru Bay and Miuru Ward, when you go to North Kanyamkago Ward, Madam Speaker, when you go to Komosoko Nyamosense in Kuria, Madam Speaker. These are just examples of wards that qualify for these funds in Migori County. And Madam Speaker, I hope that one day the Senate will come to Senate Mashinani in Migori. When you go to these places, the economic potential between Miuru Bay and Migori County, in Luanda Konyango and Migori Town, between North Kanyamkago and Migori Town, Komosoko Nyamosense and Migori Town, Getonganya in Kuria and Migori Town, Madam Speaker, is so...
Time up, Senator. Just half a minute.
Yeah, just half a minute, Madam Speaker. I wanted to say that the economic potential of those areas, Madam Speaker, is so immense, but they have never even seen a quarter a kilometer of roads that we're talking about, of tarmac roads, Madam Speaker. Therefore, this fund is extremely critical, and as senators, we must fight for it to come, and therefore I want to support this bill, and I hope that, as I said, the Senate will always stand against any money that is being deducted from the counties. I thank you, Madam Speaker.
Senator Omar Sheikh Mariam.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for giving me this opportunity. Madam Speaker, I stand here to support the motion, the report from Finance Committee on Equalization Fund. Mr. Speaker, when we intend to reduce the Equalization Fund, you have to justify. We have to know the reason of the Equalization Fund. Madam Speaker, Equalization Fund is established Article 204, which says 0.5% of the revenue collected annually is specifically allocated to marginalized area. That is 14 counties. Madam Speaker, and its function is for development of water, road, electricity, and health sector, health facility. Madam Speaker, when you touch that fund, you must have a justification. Does it mean there is electricity in these counties? Does it mean there is road, tarmac road in these 14 counties? Does it mean health sector is perfect? Madam Speaker, as currently with CBC, which kids are normally given an homework, go and download, go and do this, go and print this. Without electricity, we cannot do that. And in part of these 14 counties, which is among Mandera County, there's no electricity. Madam Speaker, I had one senator, I think Senator of Mombasa, which intervened, Senator Boni Kawale, on Turkana, they have water. Madam Speaker, does it mean when there is a river, there is water? Because when we talk of water, we need a running water. People cannot go to the river to drink. We are not animals. So on that ground, this money is meant for running water in a household. So Madam Speaker, electricity is the life of the livelihood of human being. In our area, it is hot. We need our cold drinks. And most of our women do business with this electricity to do business with these cold drinks. And if there is no water, if there is no electricity, they cannot. So that means if there is electricity in each county of these 14 counties, there's job creation, the economic increments, growth. Madam Speaker, so in this, my opinion, there must be a justification of touching this equalization fund. Madam Speaker, with those all remarks, thank you very much.
Thank you, Senator Mariam. Senator Kajwang Moses Otieno.
Madam Speaker, I rise to support the Finance Committee and the motion they brought to the House that we do reject the amendments of the National Assembly on the Equalization Fund Bill. Article 204 of the Constitution establishes the Equalization Fund and says there shall, not may, shall be paid 0.5% of all the revenue collected by the national government each year, calculated on the basis of the most recent audited accounts of revenue received as approved by the National Assembly. The base is not an estimate. The base is actual revenue as audited and approved by the National Assembly. It is science, it is not voodoo. It is science, it is not politics, it is not an estimation. And Madam Speaker, on the basis of that science, the Senate proposed that we allocate 10,867,400,000 to the Equalization Fund. The National Assembly proposes we allocate 10,077,400,000 to the fund. And we wonder what science or what mathematics they are using. The base is prescribed and specified in the Constitution. And if we are to agree with the National Assembly, we will be abdicating our role and will be running away from the Constitution. Madam Speaker, I cannot support that proposal by the National Assembly because Homa Bay County was meant to get 138 million. If we go with the National Assembly's proposal, Homa Bay loses 10 million and we get only 128 million. And yet we've got a lot of pockets of marginalization in Homa Bay County. The islands of Ringiti, Remba, Takawiri, Mfangano, Rusinga, all these are places that have been forgotten. over the years. This money must go to Homa Bay in full as approved by the Senate. Madam Speaker, we must, as a House, revisit the regulations for under the Equalization Fund. In the last Parliament, this House passed the regulations under very acrimonious circumstances. Senator Faki was then the chair of the Delegated Legislation Committee. The National Treasury promised that they would bring back those regulations to this House for them to be corrected, because the regulations place the responsibility of identifying and making decisions on projects under the Equalization Fund to county commissioners, to members of National Assembly, and largely excluded even county governments. Madam Speaker, those regulations must be looked at. We must revisit the marginalization policy. Of course, under the marginalization policy, we came up with some English called pockets of marginalization. And so you could even go to the president's home area and claim that there is a location or a sublocation or a ward that is a pocket of marginalization. In the eyes of the public and the eyes of the nation, this marginalization fund ideally ought to have gone to those places that have suffered historical injustices. But today, this fund is going to the backyard of presidents, current and past, and Madam Speaker, that is as a result of a flawed marginalization policy that this House approved. The Equalization Fund is not there forever. Under Article 204(1)(b) or 16, the Equalization Fund has a sunset of 20 years. In the last 10 years, or in the last 10 or 11 years, Madam Speaker, the arrears to the Equalization Fund is 39.9 billion. When will we ever be able to achieve the objectives of this fund as specified by the drafters of our Constitution? Madam Speaker, I reject the National Assembly's proposal and also want to add this. Funds that have already been sent to the grassroots should never be allowed to come back to the center. I take the view, even on the CDF, Madam Speaker, even though we do not like the manner in which the CDF is organized and sometimes administered, the Senate should never, on any day, say that those billions that have already been ring-fenced for grassroots development should come back to the center. If we have issues with CDF, and of course we do have issues with CDF, we should look at the structure, the governance, and the management, and we should remove politicians from it. But it wouldn't be proper for this Senate, which stands for devolved governments, to oppose any funds that have already found their way to the grassroots. Because when they remain in Nairobi, they will be stolen and they'll be used for helicopter rides and they'll be used for Harambes, fundraisers that do not add value to the GDP of this country. Madam Speaker, we must allocate money to the Equalization Fund as per Article 204 of the Constitution. We must ring-fence and protect and safeguard all funds that have gone to the grassroots, including what we call the CDF. We can rename it, we can change the management structure, but we should never ever say that that money should come back to the center. Madam Speaker, I support the report of the committee to reject the amendments of the National Assembly.
Thank you, Senator. Senator Tobiko Pesi Peris.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I arise to support the report by the Senate Committee of Finance, Madam Speaker, on the proposed amendments by the National Assembly, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I am actually dismayed that the proposed amendments by the National Assembly went through the National Assembly, Madam Speaker, with members of the National Assembly from those affected counties seated and not objecting to this kind of proposal, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I note with concern that the National Assembly is proposing a reduction of the Equalization Fund by almost 1 billion, that is Kenya shilling 790 million, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, there is no justification for such a reduction, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I therefore support the proposal by the Committee of Finance to reject the National Assembly proposed amendments, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, we will hear none of it. We will not support any of such a move, Madam Speaker, of money that was meant for marginalized areas of our country, Madam Speaker, in the words of Senator Kajwang, to come back to the center, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, this money was meant for roads. This money was meant for electricity connectivity. This money was meant for health services and for water, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, our counties are still extremely needy, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I understand that Treasury needs to bridge the gap between, of what was left after the rejection of the finance bill. But, Madam Speaker, Treasury can scoop and can bridge that gap by addressing the leakages within the mainstream ministries, Madam Speaker, by addressing the wastages, Madam Speaker, but never by returning money that has gone, that is devolved to our local areas, Madam Speaker, or to our rural areas, Madam Speaker, where this money is really needed, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, we cannot continue paying lip service to equality in this country. We cannot continue, Madam Speaker, paying lip service to a purportedly just government of the people, by the people, for the people. Yet, Madam Speaker, we never seem to stand with the people when the right time comes for us to stand with the people, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, if I take an example of Kajiado County, Madam Speaker, I know of 3 constituencies that do receive the Equalization Fund, Madam Speaker. That is Kajiado West, Kajiado Central, and Kajiado South, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, even those constituencies that are not receiving, Kajiado East and Kajiado North included in Kajiado County, should be receiving, Madam Speaker. Because, Madam Speaker, we are here every time lamenting of our bad roads, of never seeing tarmac, roads raised to bitumen standards like in other counties of this country, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, no, Madam Speaker, when our friend from Nandi says what we see in their areas could be farms that are owned by multinational companies, Madam Speaker, and they've had the presidency for several years, the county or the counties in central Kenya have had the presidency for several years, Madam Speaker. Then if they've not been able to address such things as the multinational companies and address historical injustices, Madam Speaker, the little that the Constitution has given our counties, we cannot agree for it to be returned to the national government, Madam Speaker, and to Treasury, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, Treasury is yet to honor its commitment to increase the Equalization Fund from what has so far been disbursed of around 22.5 billion. What they should have disbursed by now is around 62 billion, 62.4, Madam Speaker. And so there is a whole almost 40 billion yet to be disbursed, Madam Speaker. So we cannot go for the little that has already been disbursed, Madam Speaker. It should be added, Madam Speaker, and let the National Assembly be on notice that even if...
Time up, Senator Paris. Finish the sentence and then...
Okay, Madam Speaker, thank you very much, Senator Karen Nyamu. Madam Speaker, I was just saying the National Assembly should be on notice that even if they return the division of revenue back to this House, Madam Speaker, we will not support any reduction of funds to the counties, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I support. Thank you very much.
Okay. Senator Koit Andrew Mutata.
Madam Speaker, thank you for the opportunity to address this House in support of the report that's before us for debate. Under no circumstances should we stand by as the Constitution is being violated. The Constitution is an absolute bar to what the National Assembly has attempted to do. These figures are not based on the budget of 2024, which was rejected. when the president declined to sign the finance bill into law, following the pressure by the agency and others. So there's no way we are going to peg the equalization funds to the current budget. They are pegged on what has already been spent by the government, and there are constitutional requirements, and there's no way you can depart from it. Personally, my county of Busia was supposed to get 18.9 million. It's being reduced by about 1.5 million to 17.5. So Bunyala South, Malaba North, and Angurai South, which were beneficiaries, will lose out drastically. And as you can see, 18 million is really a drop in the ocean, given the challenges in these wards that were approved for equalization funding. And so I pray that this House speaks with one voice and rejects what is being done. You have also seen that the National Assembly has proceeded to do a supplementary appropriation act, which the President, I'm told, signed into law. Yet the Court of Appeal said that an appropriation act must contain both estimates of revenue and estimates of expenditure. The Supplementary Appropriations Act that the President has signed only contains estimates of expenditure. It's time these people realize that some of us will not tire from going to court to strike these unconstitutional laws down. And if this particular bill is forced through, then we will be forced to call upon the judiciary to defend the Constitution by striking it down. So, Madam Speaker, I think this House must speak with a very clear and loud voice that it's a House that respects the rule of law, it's a House that respects the Constitution of Kenya, and it's a House that defends the Constitution of Kenya. If the National Assembly thinks it's a law unto itself, that thought must end with this bill. And I support the position that the bill be rejected and the Constitution be upheld over everything else, not even the figures of whatever amounts of money. The trump card is that the Constitution says no, and the Constitution is an absolute bar to what the National Assembly is attempting to do. And they better be advised, and I thank the committee for having rejected this attempt to violate the Constitution of Kenya when we are against the backdrop of demonstrations demanding that the rule of law and constitutionalism be respected. Madam Speaker, with those few words, I thank you for the opportunity. I donate my time to Senator Lekina.
Senator Oruoba Gloria.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for this opportunity to add my voice onto this report by the Finance Committee. Madam Speaker, I hate to be the devil's advocate, but I know my colleagues are expecting me to sing to the chorus of the Senate. But Madam Speaker, especially after what has happened and with the revelations and the outcry of Gen Z, Madam Speaker, it is time that we start telling each other the truth. So today I want to stand here to speak the truth to my colleagues and to speak the truth, not because I'm in the Senate and there's a battle between the National Assembly and the Senate, but because the truth of the matter is that after many years of devolution, we have to ask a question of how are we accounting for the funds that we keep on fighting for to send to the county assembly, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, if you look at the rejection that is being faced of the proposal from the National Assembly, Madam Speaker, we are talking about a reduction from 10.8 billion to 10.07. This is a reduction of less than 5%, Madam Speaker. When we were talking to the President and the Executive and saying that we must live within our means, that we must cut back, that we have to exercise austerity measures, Madam Speaker. We then also said every single ministry has to cut back on the expenditures. So what is different with the County Assembly, Madam Speaker? What is so special about the County Assembly that they can't cut back on the expenditure, Madam Speaker? Just last night, I was reading an analysis. You know, I'm a member of the African Parliamentarian Networks Against Corruption, Madam Speaker. And Madam Speaker, if you can protect me from Senator Ledama and Kajwang, who are distracting me with the noise, Madam Speaker, I can barely hear myself speaking. Madam Speaker, just last night, when I was going through an analysis of Migori County, where 2 billion Kenya shillings was misappropriated, Madam Speaker, 2 billion, till today, we actually cannot get back that money. And even apparently, ECDE has gone into some sort of agreement so that they can get 10% back and then they can let go of the alleged person who has misappropriated the funds, Madam Speaker. We have to tell ourselves the truth. And the truth of the matter is, we are no longer living in the times where we can come here and fight and say, you cannot reduce budgets of the county assembly. Madam Speaker, some counties, till today, keep on receiving supplementary budgets because apparently they are marginalized. Apparently they need more money for more roads. But Madam Speaker, till today, counties where Senator Senator Chute comes from cannot even tell us what they're doing with their supplementary budgets. Madam Speaker, so when a proposal comes from the National Assembly that we have to all be aware that we are living in the times where we do not have this money, we need to cut back, and therefore even less than 5% is what is being proposed to cut back. Madam Speaker, to hear people or my colleagues standing and saying we will go to court, you will go to court so that we can get money from where, Madam Speaker? We are the same people who stood here after the invasion of Parliament and congratulated Gen Zs for reminding us that we must be able to live within our means, Madam Speaker. And yet we are the same people standing here just to become popular and, you know, being sensational with this particular bill to say, no, we must send more monies to counties, Madam Speaker. I beg that my time is preserved.
Senator Eddie Okech, what is your point of information? Would you like to be informed by Senator Eddie, the very well-schooled Senator Eddie?
Yes, Madam Speaker, and also because I saw the light going on and there's my time that was lost in between. If I can be added my time, kindly.
Madam Speaker, I wanted to inform my very good friend, Senator Gloria, that I hear where she comes from, but I do empathize with the fact that we are actually not discussing whether to reduce the money spent by county assemblies or even the executive or not. The money we are talking about is Equalization Fund, which is a fund that was put in place to be able to intervene for communities that were marginalized under section paper number 10 of 1965. And the problem that we are facing as a Senate currently is that since 2021 financial year, the National Treasury has committed to give money to counties to this fund, and they have failed consistently towards that. And that money has actually been ring-fenced. It's not actually even a county government money. It is a national government money that is actually executed by the national government that needs to actually go to counties. So it has nothing to do with the spending of counties. It has got nothing to do with the county assembly. It is just a simple fact that the National Treasury has not honored its commitment, and this money could as well be in the Treasury, being wasted in the Treasury. And it's important to distinguish that, the Honorable Senator. Thank you.
Senator Gloria, you may proceed and finalize in your minutes.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I have allowed Senator Eddie because we are both with the youth bracket. But, Madam Speaker, I have that information. Whether it is the Equalization Fund, whether it is the appropriation fund that we send to counties, whether it is the fund that we use for whatever purposes, Madam Speaker, the rallying call by Gen Z, by us in this house, was that we cut back on expenses. And Madam Speaker, on that point, on the Equalization Fund, I want to challenge Senator Eddie to actually go and ask the Senator for Turukana, Lomenen, how they have been exercising or actually using that Equalization Fund over the years, because they get a very huge amount and they cannot showcase for what they are doing with that Equalization Fund. Madam Speaker, with those few remarks, I must say that we must speak the truth, and the truth of the matter is that we are cutting back, whether on equalization fund, whether on appropriation fund, whether on the executive fund, on state house, on whichever. Madam Speaker, we are in the times where we must cut back, and that I support the National Assembly.
Senator Boni Halwale, what's your point of order?
Madam Speaker, I rise on Standing Order number 105 to request that the distinguished Senator Gloria withdraws her remarks and apologizes to the successive governors of Turkana. They have never misused the equalization fund. In fact, they don't have that money. That money has never been disbursed. So her failure to appreciate the clarity of this motion should not allow her to cast aspersions against governors who have no opportunity to defend themselves here. And Madam Speaker, the governors I'm talking about is His Excellency Nanok, who works at State House as a comptroller, and His Excellency is the current governor. She's out of order, she must withdraw, and she must apologize.
Senator Gloria, there is a point of order raised by Senator Boni with regard to what constitutes the fund that is under discussion, and whether you do appreciate what that fund is intended for and who utilizes that fund, whether it's national or county government.
Madam Speaker, I beg that the Hansard pulls out a report of where I have actually referenced the particular governor that Halwale is stating, and at which point then I will apologize and withdraw, because, Madam Speaker, I have been consistent in saying that whatever fund we are discussing, and I'm very well aware of the Equalization Fund, Madam Speaker, you know, it is because sometimes when you speak the truth, those who don't expect the truth, they get very uncomfortable. That's why you can see Senator Kajwang and Halwale getting very agitated, Madam Speaker. We must cut back. Cutting back does not, it is not special, it's not ring-fenced just to State House. Cutting back means all funds, including the Equalization Fund, which the National Assembly has said less than 5%, we should be reduced by less than 5%. So, Madam Speaker, when the Hansard actually confirms that indeed the allegations that Senator Halwale is placing on me, that indeed I actually said that Governor Nanok has misappropriated funds, Madam Speaker, I will withdraw and apologize.
What is the point of information, Senator Kajwang? Would you like to be informed, Senator Gloria?
Of course, Gloria.
Inform Senator
But
Kajwang.
Madam Speaker, on being informed, I'm well informed. I don't think I want to be informed further. Thank you.
Okay.
Senator Gloria, I think we raised the matter there. But your truth may not be the truth on Senator Boni Halwale. People have different sets of truth, but facts remain facts. So we proceed on to Senator Olekina Leda.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I'm very concerned that in this House we are now comparing apples to bananas instead of apples to apples. Madam Speaker, it is really sad, because what we are talking about here is not even money which is sent to county governments. This is money that has been utilized by the national government. Madam Speaker, the Constitution under Article 204 sets the Equalization Fund with a sunset clause. And the Constitution determines how much money is going to be set aside to be able to uplift the standard of living of people of these nations who live in different pockets of this country, who have been left behind by any other form of development. Madam Speaker, it saddens me when I see a colleague stands here and become populist just because we've got a crisis in this country and completely misadvise, misguide the nation on what we are talking about. This indiscipline, fiscal indiscipline of Treasury must be stated very clearly. That what we are talking about here, Madam Speaker, in simple English, is that the Senate, Senator Ledamo Lekena standing here, completely rejects the unconstitutionalism of the actions of the National Assembly by attempting to rewrite the Constitution, by saying that we are going to reduce money which has been set by an independent body, given powers, using a particular base. Madam Speaker, sometimes before we talk here, we need to be educated in exactly each and every role that we are discussing. If we discuss the issue of the division of revenue bill, which I had my sister talking about, my sister Paris, saying that there's an amendment to it from the National Assembly to come here. This will be the first time in history, Madam Speaker, that I've heard that the division of revenue bill has been amended. And this explains why, until today, the President has not signed CARA, the county revenue allocation bill that we passed in this House. Section 5 of the division of the revenue bill is very clear. If there is a shortfall in any revenues, the national government absorbs it. So I hope that when we are talking about all these issues, the first thing that should not happen, and the committee which is going to be mediating on this should not go out there and shame us. We cannot relook at, we cannot entertain any amendment to the division of revenue bill. That is issue number one. Issue number two, Madam Speaker, Treasury has not released money that has been set aside by the Constitution to uplift the standard of living of people. And here, I disagree with my colleague, Senator Kajwang, that there are a few things that we may need to change. But I believe that counties, especially like a county like Narok, has got pockets of marginalization. Because these are skewed by the leadership that comes in. They decide we are not going to support people from Mosiro. We are not going to give them water. We are not going to give them a hospital. So I want to persuade my colleague, Senator Kajwang, that I am in pain today. Because Narok County was supposed to get about 850 million to be able to help these pockets of marginalization. And that was advised by the wisdom of the Commission of Revenue Allocation, who went around looking at studies, looking at poverty indexes in this country, and saying that the people in Leshuta or the people in Mosiro do not have water. They have no hospital. So instead of saying the entire Narok County is marginalized, let us be realistic and we say even people in Kilifi, there are parts in Kilifi which are not marginalized. Madam Speaker, I'll request that you give me just 3 more minutes. Because these are things that we're discussing which are very important. And it is important for us to demystify
just 1
them.
minute, Senator.
After my time, yeah?
Not 3 minutes.
Okay, thank you, Madam Speaker. It is important, and I hope that Majority Leader, next time when we have such bills or motions to discuss, we are given the 15 minutes time that is in our standing orders, instead of curtailing debate, because people out there will not understand. If now we are being told by our own colleagues that we are not agreeing to reduce money that goes to our counties, yet the Equalization Fund is not going to the counties, we have to explain to the public, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, since inception, the money that has been released on the Equalization Fund is not quantum physics. It's money that everybody knows. It's only 13 billion. And that 13 billion, county governors have not even seen a penny of that money. You know, these ministerial state agencies are the ones that implement those things. In fact, they have not even paid the people who did those works. If you go to Narok County today and you go to Kilgoris, you'll find hospitals that were built under the Equalization Fund, people who are not paid. So when we come here, let us separate fact from fiction. And the facts are, there's a lot of indiscipline in Treasury that we need to correct. When we are now correcting, any money that has been set aside for Equalization Fund, send that money. Number two, you know, number two, it is imperative that at least now, when we are trying to be in this sort of like musical, because I call it a musical of trying to correct all the misgivings and all the bad things in this country. The first thing that the National Assembly should do, they should try to pull up their socks so that they can be able to base the revenue which is sent to counties to current financial statements which are audited and adopted by Parliament. If we are looking at the year 2020, 2021, are we being honest with each other? Number two, Madam Speaker, I want to plead with the President that sign CARA. We divided money between national government and the county governments. CARA
Senator
assists
Kajon
us
and Senator
divide,
Uroba, can you consult in low tones?
Divide money among our counties.
Senator Uroba, you were complaining a few minutes ago that you could not be heard on the floor of the House because of senators making noise.
Yes, sir.
Proceed.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I hope you had stopped my time. Madam Speaker, let me repeat that again. Please, Mr. President, since we're in this musical of trying to please everybody and to correct all the misgiving, all the indiscipline in national government must be corrected. Tell your folks at National Assembly to pull up their socks so that we can be able to audit current financial statements so that money can be divided based on current financial statement audited. Number two, please sign the CARA. There's no way we are going to sit here and amend the schedule, the cash disbursement schedule to the counties. I mean, seriously, why should we be sensational? And that is the problem, Madam Speaker, of having a government with a policy of being reactionary. We should be, at least we should actually be able to think.
Mr. Thank you. There are no more senators who would wish to contribute to this motion, so I call the mover of this motion, Senator Tabitha, on behalf of Chairperson, Standing Committee on Finance and Budget, to respond, to reply to the motion.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I do start by really giving my thanks to all the colleagues in the House who've contributed to our motion on the Equalization Fund. Madam Speaker, I'm very grateful, and we've keenly listened to all the concerns that have been shared before this House, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, allow me to say just a few as far as the emphasis of the issue of the Equalization Fund is concerned, that, Madam Speaker, it's good for members to appreciate and note that the issue of Equalization Fund is a constitutional issue. And after the enactment of the 2010 Constitution is when the Equalization Fund under Article 204 was put in place. Madam Speaker, further to that, the exact duration, I had one of my colleagues talk about 10 years, but it is actually 20 years, Madam Speaker, that the fund had been, that's the duration that the fund had been given, which is 20 years, and supposed to lapse in the year 2030, there and about, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, Equalization Fund is a fund that was set aside to be able to look at the four issues of concern. That is one, the issue of water, the issue of roads, the issue of health facilities, and electricity. More specific, Madam Speaker, to the regions that really have got low developmental levels as far as these four areas are concerned, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, the identified 34 counties have been identified through CRA, Madam Speaker, using the 8 parameters of the formula, Madam Speaker. It is not by way of just, just coming up and just deciding blindly, but this is a process, it being constitutional, that has adhered to all the parameters that needed. Madam Speaker, these funds were to go down at the village level through the constituencies. And you realize each county has got the constituencies that were to actually benefit with the Equalization Fund. Madam Speaker, the question is Equalization Fund new? What is the issue before the House from the Finance Committee, Madam Speaker? The issue that we are addressing and allocation of the funds. The animal that is those funds. Madam Speaker, even at the point that the national benefit the people says that there is an established equalization fund into which shall be paid 1.5% of all the revenue.
So what is your point of order, Senator Allocation?
Madam Speaker, I hate to interrupt my dear sister. I'm actually very fond of her because of her diligence. Has allocated 62 billion, yet the figure is calculated based on what the Constitution states. I think it is imperative that we provide facts, because when you hear that the committee has allocated 62 billion, you know, it is not. I think it is imperative just to come out clearly, because I think the Hansard will bear as witness, and also be very clear on how much has already been dispensed out. Total, scientifically. It's that simple. Mr. Speaker, Madam Speaker, I don't know who is there now, 105 on statement of facts. My dear sister has alleged that the committee has allocated 62 billion, or treasury. But the question is that really a statement of fact? Because the Constitution is quite sensitive. It states a percentage of revenue, national revenue, which shall be set aside for equalization. I just want us to put the record straight.
Senator Olekina, I believe Senator Tabitha has, of course, run through your point of order. She definitely will clarify. Just wanted to give you the comfort. I wanted to give you the comfort that as the vice chair of the committee, she's definitely in a position to clarify that. Senator Tabitha, proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And let me start by saying that when I started moving this motion, my big brother, Senator Ledama, was not in the House. And
Senator Olekina, you had your time. Allow the senator to continue without interruption. Senator Tabitha, proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I appreciate and respect when members on the floor, the same, it is reciprocated. And I started by saying when I started moving the motion, the good senator, my big brother, was not in the House. And I've actually, when I'm replying, I've not even talked about figures. I've more talked about the years. But just to mention, let me read it for him, that the total allocation to the fund since inception is Kenya shillings 22.5 billion, against a total entitlement of 62.4 billion. Thus, there are arrears to 30. Appreciate. And I like it because he really is also very passionate on matters of finance, as I am always. And I'm happy because now we are on the same page. Mr. Speaker, as I continue, I was on Article 2 of